what was sealed with thunder that even angels dared not repeat. The book of Revelation speaks of 7 thunders that uttered their voices, but John, the seer of Patmos, was forbidden to write them down, a secret held back by heaven. Why were these thunderous prophecies sealed? What divine truths shook the heavens and were hidden from mankind? This is a story of forbidden revelation, of visions too terrible, too holy, too final for the world to bear. Some say these thunders hold the final warnings before the end. Others believe they speak of a war still raging in the unseen. Tonight, we unseal what the world was not meant to hear. Close your eyes now. Let the noise of the day fall behind you. Breathe with the stars and stay with this story until dawn. Remain as the ancient words unfold and let the quiet of heaven carry you through the night. And now, let us listen again to what thunder once tried to say. In the hush between the stars, where time folds like linen laid gently over the lap of eternity, there came a voice, not thunderous, yet clothed in the majesty of heaven's decree. It did not shout, nor cry, nor clamor with the rage of men, but moved like wind through temple curtains, like the breath of incense through the lattice of a priest's veil. And John, the seer exiled upon the barren stones of Patmos, lifted his head and beheld the sky break open, not with chaos, but with revelation wrapped in silence. A cloud descended, not of rain nor shadow, but of radiance veiled. And within it stood one like unto a messenger of the Most High, and his form bore the marks of the divine thunder. His face was hidden, yet his bearing was that of one who had stood near the throne. A rainbow crowned his brow, not the arch that fades with rain, but a circlet of covenant, the echo of promises spoken long before the foundations of the earth were laid. His right foot stood upon the sea, and his left upon the land, for what he brought was for all the world. None would escape the weight of his mission, nor the holiness of his silence. Clothed in a mantle of cloud, girded with light, he held in his hand a scroll, a little book open, not closed. And yet it was not meant for all eyes, nor all ears, nor all tongues. For what is open in the hand of an angel may still be sealed in the soul of man. John trembled not from fear, but from recognition. This was not a vision conjured by hunger or sunstroke. This was a divine appointment, a moment prepared since before the rivers first flowed from Eden. The air was thick with sacred dread, and the rocks themselves seemed to hush. The angel cried with a voice like a lion who hath seen the edge of the earth. His cry was not merely sound, it was command, a sound that bent the firmament and awakened slumbering powers. And when he cried, 7 thunders answered. Not thunder as we know it, cracking clouds and rumbling skies, but thunder that speaks, thunder with tongues, thunder that carries the weight of celestial thought. Each utterance was like the breaking of a seal upon heaven's final scroll. And John, faithful scribe and servant, reached for his pen. But a voice higher still, perhaps the very voice that once said, "Let there be light," spoke unto him. "Seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered, and write them not." What prophet is told to be silent? What vision is given only to be hidden? And yet the seer obeyed, for obedience is greater than offering, and silence is sometimes more holy than speech. The scroll remained in the angel's hand, open but unread, visible but veiled. The mystery of it hovered like mist upon the sea. And the wind, as if fearing to offend, quieted its breath. It is written that the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. But sometimes the Word remains spirit, sealed and sacred, too weighty for mortal ears. Not every utterance is for the age of men. Some are spoken for the ears of stars and the witnesses that dwell in flame. Thus John stood, not writing, not speaking, only listening to what could not be told. And the angel, whose presence cast no shadow, for even shadow fled before such glory, lifted his hand to heaven and swore by him who liveth forever and ever, who made the sea and the dry land, the sky and the things therein, that time should be no more. That the days of waiting were drawing to their end, and the mystery of God would soon be finished. But what of the scroll? What was written upon it? What weight did it carry to warrant such ceremony, such silence, such fear? It hath not been revealed. And yet we dream of it. We dream it holds the names of those who weep in secret. We dream it speaks of a war that still unfolds behind the veil. We dream it proclaims a judgment so holy that even the angels must cover their faces. The scroll was open, yet sealed by command. And the seven thunders, though they uttered, were never recorded. Their words dwell now in the memory of heaven, held in trust by the stars, whispered among the flames of the alt. Are that burns before the throne. And John did not write them. He did not rebel. He did not ask why. For those who walk near the fire know when to speak and when to bow. So let us too bow. Let us listen not with ears but with hearts that wait in reverence. For the scroll is still open and the angel still stands, 1 foot upon the sea, 1 foot upon the land, waiting. And the seven thunders, they may speak again, but who shall be awake to hear them? Who shall not flee when holiness shakes the earth? And what shall we do if the words sealed in thunder are unsealed in our time? Sleep now with that question folded in thy soul. Sleep as the stars bear witness and the scroll in his hand remains untouched for now. What voice breaks the veil of heaven and yet leaves no echo in the scrolls of man? What sacred sound, uttered in fullness, falls into silence not for want of ink, but by divine command? There are words that call the stars to dance. There are whispers that cause mountains to tremble. And there are utterances, 7 in number, that the soul of man was not fashioned to hold. John, the beloved, the exile upon Patmos, beheld a wonder not shaped by dreams nor madness, but born of holy witness. He saw, he heard, he understood, and yet he wrote nothing. The angel had cried aloud with a voice like the roar of a lion whose breath had touched eternity. And from the spaces between realms, from the unseen hollows of divine mystery, came the answer. Not in 1 nor in 2, but in 7 thunders, 7 voices woven from flame and storm, from glory and finality. They spoke, not like men speak, not like angels comfort, but like the heavens testifying under oath. Each thunder fell upon the earth like a seal being broken, like a trumpet being sounded, like the veil in the temple tearing once more. The trees bowed, the waters still. The stones dared not echo, for the utterance of the 7 was not a call, it was a decree. John, moved by obedience and the fervor of revelation, reached for the quill as prophets before him had done in trembling. His parchment waited with holy expectation, and the ink, as yet unborn, longed to carry what thunder had spoken. But the voice came swift, final, unchallengeable. Seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered and write them not. It was not a suggestion. It was not a delay. It was the word behind the words, the divine will beyond understanding. And John, though shaken, obeyed. What weight must such words carry that even a prophet was forbidden to share them? What truths are so terrible or glorious that heaven itself chose silence? The thunder had not been for the nations. Not yet. It was spoken not to be spread, but to be sealed. Not to be heard by the multitudes, but to rest in the soul of one. And so John did what few prophets have done before him. He held his peace. He did not ask why. He did not plead, let me tell. He did not question the silence. He became its servant. O listener, feel the stillness of that choice. The hush that fell upon the quill. The reverence that settled like evening mist over the rocky isle. The prophet who had seen beasts rise, who had beheld the slain lamb enthroned, who had measured the golden city with rod and angel's hand. This same man now told, say nothing. He who had described stars falling like figs from heaven, who had written of horsemen with fire in their breath, who had declared woes and plagues and trumpets and bowls, he was now given a vision too high for his tongue. He knew the weight of the words, he had heard them, and yet he bowed beneath their gravity and let them pass unspoken. For there are utterances that are fire meant only for the holy furnace. There are sentences too sharp for paper, too vast for scrolls, too sacred for time. The 7 thunders were not denied to him. He was not blind nor deaf. He received it, he perceived, but he was told to carry them in his spirit, not in his hand. and so they remain, unwritten, unheard, unfinished in the ears of men. And yet are they truly gone? Do they not ring in the hollows between stars? Do they not echo faintly in the cries of creation groaning for its redemption? Do they not whisper in dreams when the soul drifts near the veil? Perhaps they linger, not on parchment, but in pulse and breath, in wind and water, in the trembling of those who wait for what is still to come. John held back not from cowardice, but from consecration. His silence was not a weakness, it was worship. For the greatest obedience is not in speaking what is given, but in withholding what is forbidden. And the seven thunders, though lost to language, are not lost to time. They wait. In some chamber of heaven they remain whole. In the vault of the throne room they echo as a sealed judgment. And one day when the Lamb breaks the final seal, when the last trumpet sounds and the stars are called by name, perhaps then the seven thunders shall be lost, and their voice shall not be held back. But until then, sleep, dear soul, in the quiet where thunder once spoke. Rest beneath the hush of sealed prophecy, and ask thyself in stillness, wouldst thou write if thou too had heard what John heard? Or would thy hand falter before the weight of heaven's own silence? Why don't heaven show and then conceal? Why open the heavens like a veil drawn back at dawn, only to draw it closed again where the light may fully shine? Why stir the spirit of the prophet, give voice to thunder, and yet whisper, write it not? For not all that is seen is meant to be spoken, and not all that is heard is given for the world to know. There are truths that breathe fire. There are visions that burn through the eyes of those who behold them. There are utterances so soaked in judgment and mercy, in terror and glory, that the world could not bear the weight of their syllables. Some words are not for this age, nor the next, but are hidden in eternity's fold, kept behind the curtain that separates time from the throne. Even the angels, those who dwell in the light that blinds, who fly on wings of flame, whose eyes never close, bow in silence when the decree is made, seal this, not because they do not know, but because they do. For the nearer one is to the holy, the more one reveres its silence. In the beginning, the voice of God moved upon the waters, not as speech, but as breath. Before the command, let there be light, was spoken, there was the stillness of divine intent. And so it is again with the thunder. They are the breath behind judgment, the hush before the storm. John was not unworthy. Nay, he was chosen, not to proclaim but to carry, not to declare but to preserve. A living scroll, etched not with ink but with remembrance. For some words are meant to live only in the heart of the prophet until the hour when heaven permits their release. Think not the silence of thunder is emptiness. It is fullness restrained. Even the Torah was given with smoke and flame, with trembling mountains and voices like trumpets. And yet there were things even Moses could not utter. There are sayings that were folded into the folds of the veil, hidden beneath the mercy seat, guarded by cherubim with eyes of knowing and wings that never sleep. What is sealed by God is not lost, it is preserved. What is kept from the tongue is not hidden from history, but held until its hour has come. There is wisdom in delay. There is mercy in silence. There is judgment in the hush. The seven thunders spoke. John heard. And yet all of heaven conspired to quiet what had been spoken. Why? Perhaps the thunder held the names of kings yet unborn. Perhaps they sang of the final battle, not in metaphor but in detail. Perhaps they told of judgments too dreadful for a world still given time to repent. Or perhaps they told of things too glorious to grasp, of the return of the Lamb not in suffering but in fire, of the restoration of Eden not in shadow but in full light, of the new song that only the redeemed shall know. To write such things would be to break the hourglass before its time, to call the harvest before the grain is ripe. And so God sealed them, and the angels obeyed, and the prophet held his peace, and the scroll remained open, yet unread. Consider the Ark of the Covenant. Within it lay the tablets of the law, Aaron's rod that budded, and manna from heaven. But upon it rested the mercy seat, a cover of gold, guarded by wings, shadowed by glory. What lay beneath was holy, but even holier was the silence above, the stillness where God said he would meet his people. So too the seven thunders lie beneath the mercy of concealment. To seek them is not wrong, but to demand them is to forget reverence. For what God seals, he seals in wisdom. Heaven is not careless with its mysteries. It reveals what is needed and veils what would overwhelm. It gives in measure, lest we be consumed by glory or crushed beneath knowledge we are not yet fashioned to bear. There is a silence that is not absence, but presence so thick it can only be felt, not heard. And in that silence we learn all. We are a people who hunger for prophecy, who cry for visions, who ask for signs. But the holiest things are often wrapped in shadows, in waiting, in sacred withholding. God gave his prophets many things: fire upon mountaintops, chariots of flame, scrolls devoured, temples shaken. But to John he gave something rarer still, silence, chosen silence. And John honored it. Shall we, O listener, as thou least in the quiet of this night, know that the thunders are not gone? They wait as watchers in the deep, as flames not yet called to burn. Their words may sleep, but they are not forgotten. What heaven seals, it shall one day unseal. And the scroll in his hand will one day be read, not in haste, but in glory, not by the pen of a man, but by the fire of the returning King. Until then, sleep beneath the hush, rest in the holy pause, and wonder, not with fear, but with trembling love, what voice might wake thee. When the seal is broken, what being is this, whose coming causes the earth to still and the sea to hold its breath, who stands with one foot upon the rolling waters and the other upon the trembling land, as though the foundations of creation were but stepping stones beneath his solemn tread? What is his name, this angel wrapped in clouds and crowned with covenant light, who speaks not from within time but from above it? John beheld him, and the vision did not pass like a dream, nor fade like the echo of prayer. It burned into the air, it trembled upon the veil between heaven and earth, and it rested upon the eye of the prophet like the sun at the end of all days. The angel came down from heaven, clothed in the mist of divine concealment, not a garment of silk or of sackcloth, but of cloud, soft yet ungraspable, luminous yet veiled, as though the very breath of God had formed a robe for him. Upon his head a rainbow, not the arc of weather and retreating rain, but the eternal bow of promise, the ring of mercy that once circled Noah's sky and has never ceased watching. It was no accident. The rainbow upon his brow was not decoration, but declaration. It was remembrance, remembrance of the covenant made when the earth had drowned in sorrow, and God set his bow in the heavens to promise that judgment would not come without warning, that wrath would not fall without first sending light. And now, that same sign was no longer in the sky, but upon the head of the messenger. He bore it as a crown. His face was hidden, not because it was cruel or cold, but because it was too full of that which must remain unseen. The stars do not gaze upon the sun, nor can the eyes of man bear the gaze of one who stands in the nearness of the Ancient of Days. His legs were like pillars of fire, sure, steady, burning without consuming. And where he stood, earth and ocean both bowed beneath him, not with hatred but in holy submission. For this angel did not come with a sword or scourge. He came with something weightier still, the scroll and the oath. In his hand was a little book opened, not closed, not locked, not sealed like the thunder, but open. And yet, though it lay uncovered, its meaning was veiled still. For not all that is open is yet revealed. And the rainbow upon his head seemed to glow brighter, as though it heard again the words spoken long ago to the first remnant of man. This is the token of my covenant between me and the earth. But now the covenant was not with water, it was with time. This angel did not descend merely to remind. He came to swear by him who liveth forever and ever, to swear by the one who formed the heavens with his voice and laid the beams of the firmament in laughter and law, to swear by the Creator, who measureth the depths, who calleth the stars by name, who beholdeth both the sparrow and the storm. And he lifted his right hand to heaven, not in defiance nor in plea, but in declaration, and he swore. What oath is this that an angel would swear it with fire in his limbs and covenant upon his crown? He swore that time should be no more. Not that hours would cease to move, nor that stars would halt in their circling, but that the delay, the sacred delay of divine patience, would come to its end. That there would be no more waiting, no more holding back the trumpet, no more staying in the hand of judgment. The mystery of God, he declared, should be finished. The time of warning would pass. The long-suffering mercy that held back the winds would release them, and the rainbow upon his head gleamed with the sorrow of fulfilled patience. It was not the anger of vengeance, nor the roar of wrath. It was the steady voice of the end of waiting. A time set before the foundations of the world, a moment foreseen but long withheld. And the earth, though not yet shattered, trembled, and the sea, though not yet dried, recoiled. For when an angel who wears the covenant as a crown swears by the everlasting, the stars do not interrupt and the winds do not speak. Heaven listens. And John the watcher, the one called beloved, stood still beneath the weight of it all. The angel said, not time shall end as mortals understand time, but there shall be delay no longer. The fullness was near. The mystery of suffering, of silence, of hope and hiding was coming into light. But what mystery is this? That God would wait. That thunder would be sealed. That the scroll would remain unopened in hand until the appointed hour. And yet now it was open, and the angel had descended, and the rainbow, once far above, now rested upon a brow that walked the dust and foam of earth. The voice of the oath rolled not like thunder, but like the bell of eternity, not loud, but final. And thus the angel stood, one foot upon the sea, one upon the land, as though he himself were the bridge between the created and the divine, between what was and what shall now be. And though his hand returned from its uplifted posture, the vow remained, echoing not through sound but through soul. The rainbow did not fade, the fire did not dim, the book did not close, and the silence that followed was not absence, but preparation. For the moment it was night, and the question burned like incense in the heart of the prophet, and now in thine. If the angel hath sworn that delay shall be no more, what remains between the promise and the return? What sound rends the veil between seen and unseen? What voice causes both the sea and earth to tremble, not from wrath but from recognition? What cry is not bound by syllables, yet known by all creation? It is not the shout of man, nor the howl of beast, nor the music of wind through olive branches. It is the cry of a messenger whose words carry the weight of worlds, and whose breath echoes the breath that first stirred the dust of Adam. The angel, mighty and clothed in cloud, stood in stillness, and then he cried. Not with lament, not with mourning, not with mere sound, but with the cry of divine commission, as one sent not to speak merely, but to awaken the very bones of the earth. His voice broke across sea and sand, through rock and thunderclouds, like the roar of many waters entwined with the trumpet of judgment and the hush of prophecy. It was the roar of eternity stepping into time, the groan of the heavens remembering what had been long concealed. It was not heard with ears alone. It passed through marrow and stone, through the winds and the deep, until all that was created bent in listening. The mountains knew it. The trees paused their breath. The waters of the great deep rose slightly in their basins, as if drawn upward by a voice they had once obeyed when they parted for the feet of prophets. And as the cry moved across the fabric of the world, the silence broke. 7 thunders answered. No echoes, not rumblings, not whined upon the high cliffs, but voices. 7. Not 6 nor 8, but 7, the number of divine fullness, of completion, of covenant and judgment mingled as one. Each thunder was a voice, not of a man nor of an angel, but something ancient and awaiting. And though their language was unknown to men, it was not meaningless. For language is not confined to tongues alone, but lives also in stars, in tides, in the rhythm of fire and cloud. The first thunder rolled like the memory of Eden's last wind. The second cracked like the veil being torn. The third fell like fire upon Mount Carmel. The fourth whispered as blood upon temple thresholds. The fifth groaned like the womb of the earth when Abel's cry was first heard. The sixth swelled like the sea at the flood's command. And the seventh thunder paused, as if all breath in heaven waited for its release. And when it came, it was neither loud nor soft, but final. Each thunder spoke not merely with noise, but with intention. They did not argue. They did not speak in turn. They were one, though seven, distinct yet joined in mystery. Their utterance was not a conversation, but a decree, a scroll written in sound, a judgment voiced in the tongue of stars. And yet none but heaven understood them. John heard, he perceived, but what he heard was not given for parchment. Not yet, for these were not words to be taught, nor lines to be sung in the synagogues. These were decrees from the innermost places of God's council, from the hidden courtroom of the Most High. The cry of the angel had opened the vault, and the thunders responded, not to men, not even to John, but to the cry itself. For in that cry was embedded the oath, that time shall be no more, that the mystery shall be finished, that what was concealed shall one day walk openly upon the earth. But that day was not yet, and the thunders in their speaking did not hasten time, they marked it. Like guardians of a sealed door, they reminded the heavens that their watch was not yet ended. O listener, thou who sleepest beneath the turning of stars, know this, there are voices that creation still hears. Voices not heard in cities, nor in the market, nor in the chambers of kings, but voices that speak through thunder, through silence, through the trembling breath of those who watch and wait. Perhaps thou hast heard them too, not with ears, but with the trembling of the soul, in the wind that comes before the storm, in the stillness after the prayer, in the ache before dawn. These are not sounds to be recorded. They are to be remembered, to be carried, to be feared and longed for. And John, having heard, stood with his hand still and his heart burning. For though the thunder were not to be written, they were not to be forgotten. Their echo lived in him as it now lives in the silence of this night. And so it was that the cry of one angel stirred the speech of seven, and the sea, though vast, did not drown it, and the earth, though heavy with sorrow, did not silence it, and heaven, though far, drew near to listen. But to man the utterance remained sealed. And we wait, not for thunder to be understood, but for its time to come again. Sleep now, not in ignorance, but in awe, for what hath spoken once may speak again. And shall thy soul be ready if it is there the thunder awakens? What is the time that even angels speak of its end? What is this river of hours in which man is carried like a leaf, unable to return, unable to leap ahead, bound to the moment, chained to the fading light of dusk and the breaking hush of dawn? What does it mean when time shall be no more? The angel had stood, radiant in silence, his right hand lifted toward the throne above the stars. Upon his brow the rainbow gleamed with eternal memory. Beneath his feet the sea and the land held their peace. And then came the oath, not from man, not from prophet, not from priest or king, but from one who had stood in the presence of the everlasting, and who had heard the voice that first shaped the heavens. He swore by him who liveth forever and ever, by the one who formed the sea and sky, the earth and the stars, who stretched the firmament as a tent and measured the waters in the hollow of his hand. The oath was not given lightly, for heaven does not speak in haste, nor do its messengers cry out without divine command. There shall be time no longer, the angel declared, and the echo of that vow moved through the vault of creation like wind through a temple veil. But what is meant by such words? Not that moment shall vanish, nor that light and shadow shall cease to dance upon the earth. Not that the sun shall fail to rise, or that the stars shall forget their places, but that the delay, the holy aching delay between prophecy and fulfillment, between promise and unveiling, shall be no more. The world hath waited long. The saints beneath the altar have cried, How long, O Lord? The martyrs have lifted blood-stained prayers. The prophets have wept over cities that would not hear. The scrolls have rested in silence. The thunders have spoken and been sealed, and the mystery, the mystery of God hath stretched across generations like a shadow cast by glory too bright to behold. Now that shadow begins to lift. The angel's cry was not the end of existence, but the end of waiting. the end of concealment, the end of mystery, and the beginning of unveiling. For the mystery of God should be finished, he said, that which was spoken by his servants the prophets, that which was whispered in visions, sealed in dreams, uttered in riddles and parables, danced upon the lips of seers and scribes. That mystery shall now be revealed. No longer shall it be said, we see through a glass darkly. No longer shall men walk in the valley of not yet. The age of shadows shall yield to the age of light. And time, which once held all things in its flow, shall now be swallowed by eternity. This is no ending as men suppose an ending. It is the lifting of a veil, the closing of one scroll that another might be opened, the end of mercy's pause, the beginning of justice's breath. And yet even in this solemn declaration there is no harshness. The voice of the angel did not tremble with wrath nor blaze with vengeance. It moved with the rhythm of the stars. It fell like rain upon thirsty ground. For this too is mercy, that God will not wait forever. The patience of heaven is long but not infinite. The cup of the ages has been filling drop by drop with the tears of the righteous and the cries of the oppressed. And now it's over. And so the oath, time shall be no more, and with it the mystery shall be finished. The Lamb once slain shall reign. The kingdoms of this world shall become the kingdom of our Lord. The harlot shall fall, the bride shall rise, and he who was hidden shall come in clouds. But until then we live in the echo of the angel's cry. We walk in the twilight between thunder and trumpets. We wait even as time wanes for the mystery to unfold. And we remember that the clock of heaven is not like the clocks of men. It is not wound by mortal hands. It does not tick by coin or calendar. It is set to the heartbeat of the Almighty. And when he speaks, then and only then shall the final hour chime, and the world shall know what it means for time to end. Sleep now, thou who dwelleth in time. Sleep, wrapped in the rhythm of days and nights, knowing that the one who made time watches still. And ask thyself when thou wakest, if the scroll were opened and time undone, would thy name be written within? Have you ever dreamed of eating fire, of taking into thy soul a word so holy, so heavy, that it burns in the belly even as it tastes like honey upon the tongue? What voice is this that bids a man consume the speech of God, not to recite it, but to bear it, to bleed with it, to become it? There was once a prophet by the river Chebar, where the heavens opened not in whisper, but in whirlwind. His name was Ezekiel, son of man, priest of exile, watcher of wheels within wheels. And in his days the land groaned beneath the yoke of Babylon, and Jerusalem mourned with a veil. At head and hollow heart, the people were scattered, the songs of Zion muted, the temple far and trembling in memory. It was in that place of estrangement, far from holy soil, that the glory of the Lord came to him, not in silence but in storm. A wind out of the north, a great cloud with fire enfolding itself and brightness all about it, and out of the midst the likeness of 4 living creatures. Each had the face of a man, a lion, an ox, an eagle. Beneath them, wheels turned with eyes full of seeing. Above them, a throne, and upon that throne the appearance of a man, clothed in fire and sapphire in majesty unmeasured. Ezekiel fell upon his face. For what soul can stand before the vision of the glory of the Lord? Then a voice came to him, not of judgment, but of command. Son of man, it said, stand upon thy feet, and I will speak unto thee. And the Spirit entered into him and lifted him, and he heard the voice again. I send thee to the children of Israel, to a rebellious nation that hath rebelled against me. Be not afraid of their faces, nor dismayed at their words. And then he saw it, a hand stretched forth toward him, and in it a scroll, not a sealed scroll, not bound by cords, but unrolled before his eyes. It was written within and without, and what was written thereon, not songs, not blessings, not tales of joy, but lamentations and mourning and woe, the ink of sorrow, the parchment of judgment. And the voice said again, Son of man, eat what thou findest, eat this scroll, and go speak unto the house of Israel. So Ezekiel opened his mouth, and the scroll was fed to him, not tasted, not held, eaten. And as it entered him, the prophet found it in his mouth as sweet as honey. yea, sweeter than the comb, but sweetness is not always comforting. Honey may drip upon the tongue, yet turn to ash when it settles in the soul. For what is it to eat the word of God? It is not to memorize it, nor to quote it, nor to hold it as an ornament before others. It is to make it flesh of thy flesh, to carry its sorrow in thy bones, to feel its burden in thy dreams. The sweetness was the presence. The bitterness was the cost, for Ezekiel would become a watchman not by choice but by command. He would lie upon his side for days without number, bearing the iniquity of a nation. He would dig through walls, shave his head, burn hair, and scatter it, all by the word of the Lord. He would see visions of abomination and the glory departing from the threshold of the temple. He would be bound in silence, save for the moments God allowed him speech. And all this began with the scroll filled with sorrow. The scroll eaten in obedience. The scroll that tasted like heaven but descended like fire into the hollow of his being. For the word of God is not safe. It is not tame. It is not gentle to those who carry it in truth. It sanctifies, but it scorches. It illuminates, but it blinds the eyes until the soul is ready. Ezekiel bore it. He bore the sweetness and he bore the bitterness. He did not cast the scroll aside once it turned heavy in his gut. He did not plead for another word, a gentler prophecy. He became the scroll. He became lamentation and warning. He became the trumpet crying in the valley of bones. And because he obeyed, because he ate the scroll and did not refuse the bitterness, he was granted visions no other man was given. He saw the cherubim carry the throne. He saw the Spirit lift and depart. He saw the river flow from the temple in a day yet to come, and the dead waters were made clean. He who had eaten fire was allowed to see restoration, but only after he had spoken woe. So sleep, thou who lovest light, and ponder this: would you eat the scroll? Wouldst thou drink its sweetness, knowing the bitterness to come? Wouldst thou bear the sorrow of God for the sake of the healing of the people? For the scroll is ever offered, and the voice still calls, Son of man, eat. What taste lingers longer than honey, and what ache remains when the sweetness fades? What fire may be swallowed, that it warms not the body but burdens the soul? What prophet hath not trembled when the word became flesh within him, not as comfort but as command? There was a man upon the isle called Patmos, alone, yet never forsaken. For though his feet walked no farther than the stones of exile, his eyes were lifted into the courts of heaven. He had seen the lampstands, golden and waiting. He had heard the voice like the sound of many waters, and he had beheld the Son of Man, whose face shone like the sun at full strength. He had received visions wrapped in thunder, in stars cast down, in the groaning of the earth and the cries beneath the altar. But now came the moment of the scroll, not the seven-sealed scroll in the hand of the Lamb, not the book of life known only to God, but a little book, a scroll open, held by the hand of a mighty angel who straddled sea and land as if both were dust beneath his command. And the voice F. Ram heaven, still as a whisper yet burning with divine authority, came once more. Go, it said, take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel. And John obeyed. He did not ask if it was meant for another. He did not plead for a different task. He went to the angel, this being clothed in clouds, crowned with a rainbow, his feet like pillars of fire, and he said with the trembling boldness of one who has stood in holy places, Give me the book. And the angel said unto him, Take it and eat it up. It shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey. So he took it, not to carry, not to guard, but to consume, to draw it into his flesh, to let the word descend from lip to heart, from sweetness to sorrow. And he ate, and it was sweet, as honey still warm from the comb, as the manna of old that fell like dew upon the wilderness. The word of God is sweet, sweet in the mouth, when first it is spoken, when first it is known. For truth is beautiful, and the voice of the Most High is more precious than rubies, more lovely than all the singing of men. But then the scroll reached the belly. Then it burned. Then it churned and grieved and wept within him. For the scroll did not carry blessing alone, it bore judgment. Prophecy is not flattery. It is not the soothing of ears or the poetry of idle priests. It is fire, and it is a burden, and it is called. John's belly turned bitter because the scroll was filled with lamentation and woe, with the tale of what must yet come, of nations crushed beneath their pride, of beasts rising, of saints slain, of bowls poured upon the earth, of the silence in heaven before the final trumpet. This was the bitterness, not because God is cruel, but because justice is never gentle to the guilty, and the world has waxed full in its rebellion. The sweetness of the scroll was its truth. The bitterness was its consequence, and the prophet, though beloved, was not spared the weight of it. He bore the thunder, though he could not write it. He bore the scroll, though it seared his bones. And from this moment John was changed. For once the word enters thee, not by hearing, but by eating, thou art no longer thy own. He would prophesy again, the angel said, before peoples and nations and tongues and kings. He would cry aloud from his island, and his cry would echo through time until it reached our ears even now. But that cry was born from a bitter belly. It came not from ease, but from obedience. It came from a fire digested. And so the word was not only upon him, it was within him. And this is the cost of prophecy, to eat what others only recite, to carry the weight of judgment alongside the mercy, to find sweetness in obedience, even when it ends in tears. O thou who seekest the voice of God, ask thyself this: do you desire the scroll only for its taste, or will thou bear it through the belly, through the sorrow, through the ache that comes with holy truth? For the scroll is still given, and the angel still stands, his hand outstretched. The book is open, the voice still speaks, take and eat. But know it shall be sweet, then bitter, and both shall be holy. What is a prophet but one who bleeds with God's voice? What is a scroll but the breath of heaven wrapped in ink, waiting not only to be read, but to be received into the marrow of a man? For the word was never meant to dwell in books alone. It seeks a temple made not of stone, but of soul. It longs not only to be spoken, but to live, to ache, to burn, to become flesh. Jeremiah once cried, "Thy word was unto me the joy and rejoicing of mine heart." Yet in the same breath he confessed, "It was in my heart as a burning fire shut up in my bones, and I was weary with forbearing, and I could not stay." For the word of the Lord is not always a soothing balm. Oftentimes it is a wound that teaches, a fire that purifies, a weight that bends the back of the righteous until they walk bowed beneath heaven's burden. This is the mystery, that the word, though divine, asks for vessels made of dust, not to rest upon them, but to enter in, to set its tent within the spirit, to make the heart its furnace, to dwell as living fire in the quiet places of flesh and thought. When Ezekiel ate the scroll, he tasted honey, but it turned bitter, for it was filled with lamentation. When John took the little book, he found sweetness in his mouth, but pain in his belly. And thus we learn, to consume the word is to carry the soul of God within the bones of man. And what happens then? The prophet becomes the prophecy. He can no longer speak idly. He can no longer walk as he once did. He is no longer his own. The word shapes his dreams, interrupts his silence, lays upon his chest like a stone in the night, and weeps through his eyes when no one is watching. He is laughed at by kings, but feared by heaven. He is cast out by the proud, but remembered by the angels. He does not choose the fire. He simply opens his mouth when the scroll is offered, and thereafter the fire chooses him. So it was with Moses, who spoke with a stammering tongue, yet bore tablets carved by the finger of God. So it was with Amos, a gatherer of sycamore fruit, who saw visions of plumb lines and baskets of summer figs, and dared to cry out against the altars of falsehood. So it was with Habakkuk, who stood upon his watch and waited in trembling for the word that would not let him rest. The word, when it truly enters, transforms. It rends the veil within the self. It draws a line between what is holy and what is familiar. It severs the comforts of belonging in exchange for the ache of divine knowing. For when the word becomes flesh within thee, thou art no longer merely a speaker. Thou art a sign, a vessel of contradiction, loved and hated, honored and stoned, lifted up and cast down. The world will not understand thee, but heaven will know thy name, and the bones in which the word hath burned shall one day rise in glory. Even the Son, the Word himself, became flesh, not clothed in thunder, but in swaddling clothes. And his hands, though shaped to create worlds, were pierced. He did not merely bring the Word, he was the Word. And he taught us this. The Word does not seek safety, it seeks surrender. It seeks hearts that will burn without being consumed. It seeks lips that will speak even when they tremble. It seeks bones that will carry the burden of heaven, even unto exile, even unto death. And when it finds such a one, the word abides, not as doctrine, not as a story, but as a living flame. And so, dear soul, if ever the scroll is placed before thee, if ever thou art called to take and eat, know this, thou shalt taste sweetness, but also sorrow. Thou shalt be filled with light, but also with groaning. Thou shalt see the heavens open, but I also walk alone. And yet thou shalt walk with God. The scroll is not for the mouth alone, it is for the belly, for the bones, for the very breath of thee. And blessed is the one in whom the word becomes flesh. Blessed is the one who burns and does not run. Blessed is the one who weeps and still speaks. Blessed is the one whose silence is filled with holy fire and whose voice, when it returns, carries the weight of the Almighty. Sleep now beneath the hush of sacred breath. Let the scroll rest near thee. Let the fire wait within thee. And when morning cometh, will thy bones still burn? Will thy soul still speak? What sound dwelleth behind silence? What word is so holy that even prophets dare not speak it, and even angels guard it in hush and shadow? What is the weight of a vision given not to declare, but to conceal? In the days of kings and empires, when lions roamed palaces and fire walked among men, there lived a man beloved in heaven. His name was Daniel. He was taken while young, a child of Jerusalem, a remnant of the house of Judah, torn from the sanctuary of Zion and brought to the courts of Babylon, where golden gods stared from high walls and the tongues of many nations blended beneath the hanging gardens of pride. Yet though the city around him worshipped idols of silver and stone, Daniel purposed in his heart not to defile himself, not with their foods, nor their customs, nor their forgetting. He who was exiled in body was never exiled from the gaze of God. Dreams sought him. Visions visited him. Angels called him greatly beloved. He interpreted the mysteries of Nebuchadnezzar. He read the writing upon Belshazzar's wall, and he saw kingdoms rise and crumble like waves breaking on forgotten shores. And yet, one vision came that would not be spoken. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, while standing by the river Hiddekel, Daniel lifted up his eyes and beheld a man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. His body was like beryl, his face as lightning, his eyes as lamps of fire, his arms and his feet like polished brass. And his voice was like the voice of a multitude. Daniel fell, not because of fear alone, but because the presence was too near, too weighty, too full of something ancient and eternal. He was touched, strengthened, lifted. And then came the words, not to soothe, but to pierce the veil between time and the eternal. The messenger told him of wars yet to come, of kings from the north and south, of abominations that maketh desolate, of one who shall exalt himself above all gods and speak great things against the Most High. He told of Michael rising, of many that sleep in the dust awakening, some to everlasting life and some to shame. And Daniel, who had seen lions' mouths shut and nations judged, was shaken. He did not understand. He asked, "O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things?" And the angel answered, not with explanation, but with sealing. "Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end." He had heard, but he was not permitted to write. He had seen, but he was not permitted to say. The scroll was not for his generation. It was for our time yet to come, for the end. And thus the scroll was sealed, not with wax or chain, but with the decree of heaven, closed not because it was untrue, closed not because it was forgot, but closed because the world was not ready. The vision was given, but the words were withheld. And Daniel, who longed to understand, was told instead to rest. "Thou shalt rest," the angel said, "and stand in thy lot at the end of days." He was to return to the dust, knowing the scroll had been entrusted not to him alone but to the ages. And the sealed book passed into the silence of waiting. O listener, hath not thy heart stirred at this? A scroll written in heaven but unread on earth. A word carried by angels but hidden from men. And yet, can a word of God ever truly vanish? Is it not hidden like fire within coals? Is it not buried like seed in the furrows of time? For when God seals, it is not to discard, but to preserve, to guard what is too holy for now, to keep safe what would burn the hands of those who open it too soon. And so Daniel slept. The scroll remained closed. The world turned. Empires fell and rose again. The stars kept watch. And somewhere in the mystery of divine time, the sealed words waited for the sound of the last trumpet, waited for the unlocking of the appointed hour, waited for a generation that would see not only in part, but in full. And we dwell in the in-between. We read Daniel and we wonder. We listen for the echo of sealed visions in the tremblings of our time. And we ask, even now, when the seal is loose, shall we understand? And shall we be ready to hear what Daniel was not permitted to write? Sleep, thou child of dust and glory. For even the sealed scrolls are watched over, and the one who sealed them shall open them in season. And on that day thou too shalt stand in thy lot, when all that was hidden shall be revealed, and the vision shall speak. What judgments dwell beyond the reach of stars? What visions were once carved into stone and buried beneath the watch of angels, too bright for the age of shadow, too terrible for the sons of dust? What was shown to Enoch, the seventh from Adam, he who walked with God and was not, for God took him? In the days before the flood, when the earth groaned beneath the weight of giants, and the heavens strained to hold back their wrath, there lived a man of quiet fire, Enoch, a scribe of righteousness, a watcher of watchers, a whisper among the ancient hills. He walked not in palaces, nor ruled from thrones. He spoke not to multitudes, but was taken into the courts above. Not once, but again and again, drawn upward beyond the veil, into chambers where angels knelt and thunder waited, where stars were numbered and secrets wrapped in wind. And there, in that place where the breath of God sways the very foundations of eternity, Enoch was given scrolls, not of parchment nor papyrus, but of heavenly tablets. Upon them were written visions, signs, decrees, the judgment of the fallen, the path of the righteous, the hour of the end. But not all was to be revealed. Some words he was told to write and teach to his children. Others he was commanded to seal. For these were words of the sevenfold judgment, 7 curses pronounced upon the watchers who descended, 7 punishments ordained before the stars had finished their singing. Enoch beheld them. He was shown the prisons beneath the earth, where angels who had mingled with flesh were bound in chains of darkness. He saw the names of those who had taught forbidden arts, Castija, who revealed the smiting of spirits and the signs of the moon, Penemu, who taught ink and paper and the corruption of wisdom, Azazel, whose hands spilled secrets of war and weapons and vanity, until the earth was filled with blood and glowing stones. And he wept, for the beauty of their brightness was not greater than the depth of their fall. They had sworn upon Mount Hermon, 200 in number, to abandon their first estate, to take daughters of men, to raise monstrous children who consumed the land. And Enoch, though not of their kind, stood among the holy ones and was told what would become of them. "Write it down," the angel said, "but not for now. Seal it until the generation of light." The generation of light, not the children of Babel, not the builders of empires, but those who would seek wisdom as water, who would wait for God as the watchman waits for morning. Enoch wrote, and Enoch sealed, and Enoch hid the words in silence. Not all was lost. Some fragments remain. Words that speak of 10 weeks of time, of mountains melting like wax, of a new heaven above and a new earth beneath, of books opened before the Ancient of Days. But the full scroll, The sevenfold judgment, uncut and undimmed, was not for his day, nor for ours not yet. Enoch saw the Son of Man before he was born of woman. He saw him seated upon a throne of glory, and all the kings and mighty ones brought low before him. He saw rivers of fire and the spirits of the righteous clothed in robes of light, their faces shining like the sun. He saw that which eye hath not seen, and heard that which ear hath not heard. But he was told to wait, to preserve the vision not in word alone but in witness. For there are some truths that do not ripen in the soil of history. They wait like seeds beneath snow. They slumber like thunder beneath clouds. And in the fullness of days they shall be spoken again. Perhaps in your time, perhaps in mine. O thou who sleepest beneath the turning stars, know this: the judgment is not forgot. The scroll is not erased. The angels still tremble beneath the hills. And the sevenfold words are guarded still, not by men, but by flame and by silence and by the breath of God himself. So let thy heart be still, and ask, not with haste, but with reverence, if the book of Enoch were placed in thy hands, would you dare unseal it? And if the sevenfold voice were lost again, would thy soul endure the sound? What silence is so full that even the angels cease their flight? What hush stretches across eternity, not as absence, but as reverence? What moment stills the wheels within wheels, the wings of seraphim, the songs of the four living creatures, until all is paused in the breathless wait for what comes next? There was a stillness once, not in the deserts of the earth, nor in the caves of prophets, but in the very throne room of heaven. A stillness not born of fear nor of forgetfulness, but of awe so vast that it demanded even eternity to wait. And John, the seer of Patmos, beheld it. He saw the Lamb, slain yet standing, break the seventh seal of the scroll, not the first which sent forth a white horse, nor the second which lost the red, nor the third, nor the fourth, nor the fifth with cries from beneath the altar, nor even the sixth, when the sun was darkened and the stars fell like figs cast from the tree, but the seventh, the final seal, the hinge upon which all mystery turned. And when it was opened, there was no thunder, no trumpet, no voice, no whirlwind. There was silence. Silence in heaven for half an hour, not a breath, not a rustle of wings, not a whisper of wind. Even the elders who cast down their crowns and cry, Holy, 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 were still. What silence is this that even heaven dares not speak? It is not the silence of peace, nor the silence of sorrow. It is the silence before the unveiling, the pause before the storm, the holy quiet that guards the threshold of judgment. For when the seventh seal is broken, nothing may remain hidden, and so the host of heaven holds its breath. The living creatures do not chant, the angels do not sing, the thrones do not shake, the crystal sea lies still, and the Lamb, whose wounds still gleam, does not speak, for he hath opened what was sealed and now waits for the scroll to speak for itself. Half an hour, 30 measures of waiting. Not long by the count of man, but in the halls of the timeless it stretches like the edge of eternity, and in that hush the prayers of the saints are gathered. For there is another altar, not the one upon which lambs are slain, but the one before the throne where incense burns and memory is turned into offering. And to that altar comes an angel bearing a golden censer. He is given much incense, mingled with the prayers of all saints. Not one prayer is lost, not one cry is forgot. Each tear is fire, each whisper a flame, and he pours them out before the throne, and the smoke rises, the silence holds, and then fire from the altar is cast upon the earth, and there are voices and thunderings and lightning and an earthquake, but before that there is silence, a silence deeper than time, a silence weightier than sound, a silence that knows. For what is silence if not the echo of God before he speaks? Was it not silence that brooded over the deep before the word said, Let there be light? Was it not silence that stood between the cherubim as the blood of the atonement fell? Was it not silence that lingered in the tomb before the stone rolled away? Heaven knows the weight of silence. It is not void. It is fullness waiting to be born. It is the womb of all things spoken. It is the breath between mercy and justice. And so in that moment when the seventh seal is opened and the scroll unrolls, heaven does not sing, it listens. And the silence says more than 1,000 voices. It says, prepare. It says, behold, it says, the time is fulfilled. And what of us? Shall we not also fall silent? Shall we not tremble, not from fear, but from knowing that even angels wait with us, that even eternity can pause, that even the throne can fall still? Sleep now beneath this sacred hush. For thou art nearer than thou knowest to the moment when silence shall break and the trumpet shall sound. And ask thyself in the stillness of this night, when the silence ends, will thy name be found in the smoke that rose from the golden altar? What if thunder were not merely the sky's lament, but the breath of judgment wrapped in clouds? What if behind every tremble of the heavens a scroll is being unrolled, one not written in ink, but in wind and flame? What if thunder hath always spoken, but only the trembling have heard? In the days of Egypt's defiance, long before Rome crowned its emperors, and long before Babylon built her ziggurats to pierce the sky, the Lord thundered from the midst of bondage. And his thunder did not come alone. It came clothed in plague and shrouded in signs. For Pharaoh had hardened his heart, and the cry of the slaves had reached the throne of heaven. And so heaven answered, not with gentle rain, but with judgment born in a storm. And it was not once, nor twice, but 10 times did the hand of the Most High strike the land where gods were carved in stone and worshipped with blood. Yet in the midst of these 10 plagues, it was thunder that bore the echo of something older still, something deeper. For on the day the 7th plague came upon Egypt, the skies blackened not with locusts nor with smoke, but with a tempest unlike any since men began to sow and reap. The heavens opened, not with mercy, but with a voice of dread. Thunder rolled like drums of war, and fire ran along the ground as if the earth itself were being written upon by a finger unseen. The hail fell, mingled with flame. The wheat fields were crushed beneath white stones that hissed and sizzled, and fire burned through the branches as if consuming their sins. The cries of cattle and men rose as one dirge, but amidst it all, it was the thunder that spoke loudest, not in words known to man, but in syllables of awe. And Moses, servant of the Most High, lifted his hands and said to Pharaoh, I will spread out my hands unto the Lord. The thunder shall cease, and there shall be no more hail. And so it was. At the pleading of the prophet, the storm relented, the fire drew back, and the thunder swallowed itself in the belly of the clouds. But what was that thunder? What spirit moved within it? It was not mere weather, it was a witness. It was not mere noise. It was a name, unspoken yet known to the bones of the earth. It was not the anger of nature. It was the declaration of the judge, wrapped in a storm, that justice had come, and the pattern would return. In Sinai the mountain trembled and was wreathed in smoke. Thunder cracked as the law descended, etched in fire and stone. Again the voice of the Lord came not as a whisper, but as thunder. In the Psalms it is written, the voice of the Lord is upon the waters, the God of glory thundereth. Yea, he thundereth over many waters. And in the visions of John the thunder returns, 7 thunders sealed and silenced, 7 thunders spoken but not written, 7 thunders whose voices echo across the veil and shake the spine of time. Could it be that the 7 thunders are kin to the thunder of Egypt? That as the plagues fell upon a proud kingdom of the Nile, so shall these thunders rain upon a world grown deaf to mercy. Could it be that every judgment past was a shadow, and the thunders to come are the storm itself? Thunder was never random. It was a revelation. It was the veil between heavens, stirred by unseen wings. It was the drumbeat of coming judgment. And in Egypt it bore down with wrath, but also with warning. For the Lord sent Moses not in secret, but in open daylight, to say again and again, Let my people go. And when Pharaoh mocked the sky and hardened his heart, thunder became the rebuke. Thunder became the sword, and still, even in plague, there was mercy. Even in judgment there was pause, for Pharaoh was given time, time to repent, time to turn, time to hear the thunder and understand it as more than weather. But he did not. And so the storm grew. And now across the span of ages, in a world not unlike that ancient land, the thunders are stirring once more. John heard them 7, not 10. Not hail, nor flies, nor boils, but something sealed even from the prophet who leaned upon the heart of the Lamb. And still they wait, and still they rumble. And perhaps even now, when the wind howls and the clouds gather, thou hast heard them too, not with the ears of flesh, but with the trembling of thy soul. For when thunder falls, the earth remembers Egypt, and the heavens prepare to speak again. And thou, what wilt thou say when the seventh thunder calls thy name in the dark? Shall thy house be marked with blood as in Goshen? Shall thy door be sealed with light? Or shall the storm find thee as Pharaoh, proud, unbowed, and undone beneath the weight of sound too holy to bear? Sleep now, yet let thy spirit watch. For the thunder is not far, and judgment, like lightning, waits only for the silence to end. What voice is it that splits the sky but speaks not in syllables? What breath, too vast for tongues, yet known in the marrow of man? Hast thou ever stood beneath a storm and felt thy soul bow, though no hand touched thee? For the voice of the Most High hath many garments, and one of them is thunder. And in the ancient days, when mountains became altars, and the earth stood still to listen, that voice clothed itself in flame and cloud atop Sinai. It was not a whisper that called Israel to the foot of the mountain. It was not a gentle beckoning that summoned a nation from bondage to covenant. Nay, it was thunder. It was terror wrapped in glory. It was lightning flashing like the eyes of the cherubim, and smoke rising as if the ground itself could not bear the weight of him who formed it. It was the sound of trumpets growing louder and louder, not from the hands of priests, but from beyond the veil of air. And then, the voice that had no shape, no language as men know it, yet every man heard and trembled. And it is written, all the people saw the thunderings and the lightning and the noise of the trumpet and the mountain smoking, and when the people saw it, they removed and stood far off. They could not bear it. They could not look into that cloud, nor listen again to that voice. And so they cried unto Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die. What manner of word causes men to fear life itself? What power dwelleth in speech that makes the soul quake as if it had met its end? This was no ordinary voice. This was the breath of the Eternal One, not sent down through angels nor softened by dream. This was the voice that had once said, Let there be light, and light obeyed. This was the voice that parted seas, called stars by name, and etched the bones of Adam from dust. But at Sinai that voice came near, not to create a world, but to forge a people. Not to call beasts from clay, but to call hearts from stone. And it thundered, for the law was not given in silence. It was born in a storm, each commandment a flame carved in air, each word thunder echoing in the bones of men. The law was not merely instruction, it was covenant bound in sound and sealed in fear and awe. And what if the thunder was more than sound? What if within it were the very syllables of the law, sung by a voice too great for flesh to hold? For Moses heard. Moses drew near into the thick darkness where God was. He ascended through the trembling into the furnace of heaven's speech. And he returned with tablets, not of parchment but of stone, tablets inscribed not by man but by the finger of God. Can't you hear it still? When thunder rolls across thy sky, when the firmament growls like a lion in the distance, doth thy soul not stir? Perhaps, hidden in that voice, the law still speaks. Perhaps Sinai was not a single day, but a door. And every storm is a remembrance. Every rumble, a whisper of commandments not broken but buried. Every lightning flash, a cry from the mountain where God spoke. And if this be so, what of the 7 thunders seen by John? He was told not to write them. Why? Could it be that these are the final commandments? Could it be that the thunder which once spoke law now speaks judgment? That as the first covenant was delivered by fire and cloud and the trembling of Sinai, so the last shall come not in ink but in storm. If so, then thunder is not merely the echo of weather. It is the drumbeat of decrees unspoken. It is the veil of divine speech, too holy for parchment, too weighty for scrolls. And perhaps in the end the final law shall not be read with the eyes but known in the marrow. For when the heavens are opened and the Lamb unseals the last, it shall not be a quiet voice that rises, but thunder, and all flesh shall bow as they did at Sinai. But this time there will be no mountain to climb, no Moses to intercede, only the voice. And the voice shall say what was once sealed, and the sealed shall become judgment, and the judgment shall become fire, and the fire shall become silent. Sleep now, thou who walkest in shadows, but remember the thunder. For though the sky is quiet tonight, there is one who speaketh still, and his words are not yet done. Hast thou ever stood beneath a sky split open by heaven's roar, and felt thy breath drawn from thee, as if the soul itself turned to listen? What voice doth speak in no tongue, yet all creatures heed it? What sound from the heights doth cause kings to fall upon their faces, and shepherds to tremble though their flock is not scattered? Yea, from the earliest songs of the psalmist to the fierce scrolls of the prophets, thunder hath ever walked beside the breath of God. It was not by silence that David described the voice of the Lord. He did not say it whispered in lilies or fluttered among sparrows. Nay, he sang with trembling hands and harps that the voice of the Lord is upon the waters, the God of glory thundereth. 7 times he cried it out, as though the very cadence of heaven's voice must roll like waves of holy power. The voice of the Lord breaketh the cedars, it shaketh the wilderness, it divideth the flames of fire. Thus it was not only a symbol but a force, a hand unseen but felt, a judgment unspoken but executed. And what did David mean when he wrote these words beneath oil lamps in caves and courts alike? He knew that thunder was not the storm alone. He knew it as the shofar of the sky, the trumpet of divine approach. When the Most High drew near to act, the firmament bore witness. When judgment drew nigh, the clouds were clothed in fury, and thunder went before him like the beating of his unseen wings. And lo, the prophets too heard it. They did not hear it with ears only, but with their marrow, with the trembling of their spirits when heaven peeled back its veil for but a moment. Isaiah heard it as a shaking of foundations, when the thresholds of the temple moved at the cry of seraphim. Though it is written that they cried, Holy, 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 yet the trembling that followed was thunder, not of men nor of angels, but of the throne that cannot be measured. Jeremiah heard it in judgment. The Lord shall roar from on high, he shall mightily roar upon his habitation. Roar, he said, not speak. Roar, as thunder over fields soaked in the blood of idolaters. And so thunder became not only a song, but a sword. And Ezekiel, the prophet who saw wheels within wheels, who heard the wings of cherubim touch one another like the sound of great waters, he too spoke of voices like thunder. The voice of the Almighty was like the noise of a great rushing, like the noise of a host. These were not words to be written only, they were felt. Each prophet marked by thunder as Moses by fire, as if heaven left fingerprints in sound. And so thunder became the cloak of revelation. The prophets did not always see, they heard. They heard the skies weep with judgment. They heard the foundations of the mountains quake with holiness. They heard what no ear can explain and no scribe can transcribe. For it is not every word that may be written. Some must be thundered. Some must be hidden in the roll of clouds to be revealed not by ink but by the trembling of nations. And in their fear even the righteous did not flee. They bowed, they wept, they listened. For thunder was not mere noise to them, it was an invitation. It was a warning, it was nearness. Clouds and darkness are round about him, wrote the psalmist. Righteousness and judgment are the habitation of his throne. A fire goeth before him. So then if thunder cometh before his steps, what art thou to do when the storm gathereth? Wilt thou cover thy ears and harden thy heart as Pharaoh once did? Or wilt thou, like David, bow thy head and say, The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and he sent out arrows and scattered them? And what of Elijah, who stood not in thunder, nor in fire, nor in wind, but after them, after the fury, a still small voice? but he did not hear the stillness until the thunder passed. And it is not written that the thunder was void, only that the Lord was not in it. Nay, perhaps the thunder cleared the path for the whisper. Perhaps it carved space in the soul, tore down walls, shattered idols, so that the whisper could enter. For oftentimes the thunder cometh to awaken, and the whisper to seal. Thus in the Psalms and prophets, thunder is not only judgment but preparation. It is the herald, the voice before the voice. And even now, when thou least down to sleep, and the clouds draw close, and the rain begins to tap upon thy window like a wandering psalm, listen. Not all thunder is a storm. Some are remembrance. Some are the echo of ancient judgments still circling the earth. Some are the sound of words too holy to speak in daylight but known to the soul in sleep. Let thy heart not fear it. Let it draw thee nearer. Let it remind thee that heaven is not still, that the throne is not silent, and that the God of old doth still speaks, even if only in thunder. What did they see, those early ones, who lit their lamps beneath Roman roofs and whispered the name of Christ beneath breath, as if the wind itself might betray them? What scrolls passed from hand to trembling hand, not to be read aloud in the open courts, but in the quiet rooms where the Spirit moved through silence, and the word was clothed not in thunder but in mystery. There is a vision, old and seldom spoken, hidden among the writings once revered, now forgotten by the wide world. It is called the Shepherd of Hermas, and it walketh not with loud proclamation but with the hush of divine secrecy. A dream, perhaps, a parable, or perhaps, yea, perhaps, a message that was meant to be sealed until a later hour when the skies would again be rent by thunder. Hermas the man was not unlike thee or me. A servant, a struggle, a soul torn between repentance and memory. Yet to him came visions, not once nor twice but many times, as if heaven had chosen a lesser vessel, not to shame him, but to preserve him from pride. For the vessels most cracked may carry the oil of mystery, dripping slowly, word by word, into the hearts of the lowly. And in one of these visions the angel of repentance came unto him, not in wrath but in radiant calm. She stood as a woman clothed in brightness and gave him stones, stones he could not read, stones inscribed with letters that no tongue could utter, and yet the soul did somehow understand. These were the stones of the tower, a vision of the church built by unseen hands, set stone by stone according to heavenly measure. But lo, some of the stones were blackened, others were cracked. Some shone like crystal, and some, yea, some were sealed, sealed. It is this word, this whisper, that calleth the heart to tremble. What message lies in a sealed stone? What judgment or mercy hath been inscribed by angelic hand and then hidden, not to be cast away, but preserved for a time yet unborn? In the days of Hermas, none dared speak of thunder. Rome's thunder was already loud enough. But those who gathered in the catacombs, those who broke bread in secret and washed the feet of one another by candlelight, they knew that some knowledge had not yet been lost. They knew that even in the days after the resurrection, not all had been revealed. That John's scroll, so sacred, so final, had within it a voice that he was told not to write. "Seal it," said the voice, "seal it." And so when Hermas beheld the sealed stones, and when he asked what they meant, the angel answered only in riddles. The stones would be interpreted in time, but not all at once, for some had fallen, some were still being judged, and some, those most radiant, were yet to be placed in the tower's crown. This vision, though not canon to many, was once read in the churches. For a season it stood beside the Gospels, not as equal but as shadow, as echo, as a hush after the Amen. And in this hush the sealed stones whispered. Were they the same 7 thunders that John heard? Did the angel of repentance speak with the same voice that once rumbled through Patmos? Was Hermas, too, hearing the end of things, only through the veil of parable? We shall not say, for that is not our place, but we may listen. And listening we may wonder. For the early church was a place not only of doctrine but of dreams, not only of sermons but of signs, not only of martyrs but of mysteries. And within those mysteries was an understanding that God's voice is not always spoken through lips. Sometimes it is seen in stones. Sometimes it is written and sealed, waiting for a generation that will not scoff but kneel. What became of the sealed stones of Hermes? Where are they now? Perchance they were never of earth but of vision only. Or perhaps they are laid beneath the foundations of the true tower, not built with hands but descending from above. A city with 12 gates, a foundation of 12 stones, each shining with the name of an apostle, each echoing perhaps with the thunder of the voice once sealed. Let the soul not rush to answer. Let it instead rest in the question. For the sacred does not always declare, it invites. It does not always explain, it waits. It does not always thunder, it seals. And in that seal there is peace. So close thine eyes and remember Hermes, a man of sorrow, a man of grace, and the angel who brought stones not to harm but to build, and among them the sealed ones, still waiting, still speaking, to those who have ears to hear. What if the early saints saw more than they were allowed to say? What if some visions were too heavy for the ears of men, too piercing for a generation not yet broken enough to kneel beneath their weight? And what if, in the dim corners of those old stone sanctuaries, beneath the flickering light of oil lamps, beside the echo of footsteps upon hollow floors, there were scrolls passed not to the many but to the trembling few? There is a text, strange and sorrowful, hidden from the pulpits and lost from the liturgies. It is called the Apocalypse of Peter, not the Rock of Rome, but the weeper, the denier, the one who knew shame and found grace weeping by Galilee's shore. And to him, it is said, was shown a vision most dreadful and most divine, not merely of the joy of the righteous, but of the torment of the wicked, not only of paradise, but of punishment, and within it a trembling echo, a voice that cracked the firmament. 7 mountains it speaks of, 7 days of judgment, 7-fold plagues, each darker than the last. A world convulsing not in anger alone, but in purification, in unveiling. Could it be then that these were the thunders, not merely sound but sequence, not merely voice but vision, sealed not to withhold cruelty but to spare the unready? And yet Peter was shown. He was shown the fate of those who blasphemed the name of the Lord and of those who led others into darkness, clothed in light. He was shown angels wielding instruments of judgment and rivers of fire flowing not from malice but from justice, from a God who is not mocked though he is long-suffering. He was shown weeping, much weeping, not only of souls cast down but of angels themselves. And in one vision he beheld a voice like thunder crying from within the veil, "How long, O Lord?" A question echoing from the martyrs beneath the altar in John's Revelation. A question wrapped in the mystery of time. A question that doth resemble thunder, not in rage but in reverberation. But the apocalypse of Peter was not alone. There were others, scrolls buried beneath the sand or hidden in the hollowed walls of desert caves. Words from the apocalypse of Paul, where the heavens are numbered, and where the torments are mapped as a priest might map the chambers of a forgotten temple. And in each level there is a sound, not merely of cries, but of the rumble of divine approach. Thunder in the distance. There is also the apocalypse of Zephaniah, almost erased from memory. It speaks of angelic hosts, of watchers standing at the gate of every soul, and of judgment as both sword and balm. In it there are thunders that shake the dead awake, not for ruin but for remembrance. And these texts, uncanonized, unblessed, unwanted by the councils of men, were still whispered in the early church, read by those who wept under persecution, held close by those who had seen their loved ones taken by flame or lion. For such souls did not crave ease. They craved revelation, and in that craving they heard thunder. Could it be then that the 7 thunders were known not through proclamation but through dream? That John, who heard but did not write, was echoed by Peter, Paul, Zephaniah, that the sealed words found 1,000 cracks through which to whisper, not to the strong but to the broken, not to the curious but to the consecrated, not to the comfortable but to the crucified. The early church did not cast these scrolls with contempt. They read them. They copied them. They mourned their silence when the canon closed, but some kept them still beneath their garments beside their hearts. And in the shadows of the empire, these words were light, a different kind of light, not the open flame of doctrine, but the soft glow of mystery, a mystery wrapped in thunder. 7 thunders, perhaps, each with a name known only to the angels who carry them, or perhaps each a stage, a veil, a trial through which the world must pass before the final Amen. And though the church may not speak of them now, the earth still does. Each quake, each storm, each upheaval of the soul may be an echo. Each birth pain of creation may be a ripple from a voice once sealed. Each hidden text may be a mirror clouded, yes, but still reflecting fragments of the thunder that John was forbidden to speak. So let the soul not be proud in what it knows, nor despairing in what is withheld. For in silence there is revelation, and in what was never canonized there may yet be prophecy. And in thunder, though we cannot understand the tongue, there is the signature of heaven, a voice that speaketh not for applause but for awakening, a voice that once shook Sinai, once breathed through prophets, and still lingers between the pages no longer read. Do they speak of 7 judgments, or 7 wounds, or 7 days, or 7 tears falling from the face of God? We cannot say, but we may listen, and listening we may be changed. What truths are so holy they must be hidden? What words are so sharp that even the righteous dare not unsheath them? What books, though written in reverence, were locked away, not because they lied, but because they revealed too much? Beneath the incense-laden silence of the early church, there trembled a fear not of death, nor of Rome, nor of fire, but of the scrolls men dared not speak aloud. Scrolls that bore no stain of heresy, yet stirred the bones with dread. Scrolls that whispered of thunder sealed and angels unchained, of judgments written in starlight and covenants made before the world was formed. These were not rejected for blasphemy, but for weight. For in a world where truth was fragile and the soul of man still tender from persecution, some words struck too deeply, too soon, and the elders in their wisdom or in their trembling veiled them. For such books were not tame. They did not offer peace, but awakening. They were lamps not for the temple, but for the wilderness, and they bore the scent not of council halls, but of thunder. Among them were the books of Enoch, of Jubilees, of the Apocalypse of Peter, the Ascension of Isaiah, and strange psalms that spoke with tongues unknown to the ears of Rome. They sang of watchers bound beneath the mountains, of giants who wept beneath the flood, of stars that transgressed their course, and of divine laws written not in ink but in flame. They told not only of love, but of wrath, not only of salvation, but of the final separation. And they named things the world was not ready to name. Some spoke of thrones beyond the veil, others of secrets buried beneath Eden's ashes. Some hinted at other worlds, layered like garments over this one, and some dared speak of the voice that John heard, but was commanded not to write. 7 thunders, 7 voices, 7 awakenings. The early church feared these words not because they doubted them, but because they knew them to be holy, and holiness unguarded becomes fire. Some said such books stirred rebellion, not against kings, but against sleep, that they caused men to fall upon their faces in the dust, trembling at the heavens not as metaphor, but as mirror. For these scrolls revealed the hidden architecture of judgment, that each man walked upon ground already weighed, that each moment was touched by a divine eye, and many were not ready for such a sight. So the books were hidden, not destroyed, but buried, not burned, but sealed, preserved in clay jars and buried beneath the sands of Nag Hammadi and Qumran, slipped into shadows and passed hand to hand by those who still believed that thunder was a kind of prayer. But still they whispered. Even hidden, the books were not silent. They moved through the dreams of saints and the trembling prayers of monks. Some wept without knowing why. Some wrote fragments into hymns or into margins or into the silence between verses. Some felt the sky lean close during their prayers and wondered if they had heard a name not meant for this age. For these forbidden texts were not wholly forbidden. They were feared as one might fear the ark, because it is holy, not because it is wicked. Because within them stirred something ancient, vast, and awakening. It was said by one elder that the sealed books called not to the curious, but to the consecrated, that only those who had died to the world could survive their reading, and so they were hidden, that the sheep might not be shattered by the thunder that fed only prophets. Some books, it was said, contained instructions not for temples, but for the end of days. Others hinted at the names of angels not yet lost. And some, most mysterious of all, bore no words, but only symbols. Flashes of light, maps of fire, songs not meant to be sung aloud. It was not censorship that sealed them, it was mercy. For the early church believed the world must be sanctified slowly, that too much light, too fast, blinds rather than guides, and yet still the sacred unease remained. For what is hidden longs to be seen, and what is sealed sends echoes through the ground. The thunders still rumble beneath the hills. The names still burn behind the veil, and the books still wait for a generation not of pride but of purity. So ask thy soul, O wanderer in the dark, if the seals were broken tonight, would you be ready to read? Hast thou ever awoken from a dream where no words were spoken, yet thy soul was pierced as if a trumpet had been blown within thee? Hast thou ever stood in stillness and felt a voice, not upon thy flesh, nor in the wind, but within the marrow of thy spirit? There are those who heard such voices, not with ears, but with trembling breath, not with tongues, but with fire. In the deep hush of the cloister, in the long watches of the desert, in the caves where oil lamps flickered beside the bones of the saints, there were women and men who heard thunder from within. And that thunder was not a storm of clouds, but a storm of the soul. It shook the chambers of the heart like Sinai shook beneath the foot of God. And lo, their names have not vanished, though the world would rather forget. Hildegard of Bingen, whose eyes saw wheels within wheels and whose skin glowed like gold in the dark, spoke of a fire that entered her from the heavens, not a fire of wrath, but of knowing. She wrote what she heard, though she said no ear could rightly receive it. For the voice came as lightning behind her eyes, as rivers poured from the throne above the firmament. And though she was a woman, though she was cloistered, though she spoke in visions, the church could not ignore her. For her words carried the tremble of the old prophets, the hush that falls when angels pass overhead. She said, I saw a voice of the living light, and I trembled with the thunder of its joy. Yet Hildegard was not the first, nor the last. In the wilderness of Ceres, where sand and silence are thicker than breath, the monk Macarius once laid his face to the dust for 40 days. When he rose, his eyes were full of sky. They said he wept without ceasing, not from sorrow, but from the weight of a voice that had entered him like rain into parched soil. And he spoke little after that. Only this, that he had heard thunder beneath the veil of the heart, and that it was not the voice of wrath, but of mercy clothed in dread. He said, the soul is a cave, and when it is emptied, thunder comes. So too did John of the Ladder, who climbed not mountains but silence, and Catherine of Siena, who heard not speech but scent, for she said the voice of God smelt like sweetness hidden in stone, and Simeon the new theologian, who trembled in the dark and saw light burning beneath his ribs. These were the ones who did not seek visions but were taken. These were the ones who did not cry out for thunder but became it, and they spoke of a voice not made of syllables but of weight, not of breath but of presence, not of doctrine but of dissent, for they were not visited by thought but by something older than thinking, something that breathed when Eden was still new. Hildegard called it the living light. Macarius called it the lightning of stillness. Simeon called it the God who speaks where speech dies. Others called it silence, yet found it louder than any cry. And what they all shared was this, that the voice came not from without but from within, and yet it was not them. They were not the source, they were the echo. For the soul, when broken open by love and awe, becomes a harp upon which the spirit may thunder, not in rage but in trembling song. And what did the voice say? They could not speak it plainly. They wrote visions, wheels, eyes, fire, gardens, cities of sapphire, blood that sings, towers of prayer, rivers of gold flowing upward into stars. But these were only shadows of what they saw, for what they heard could not be caged by tongue. It was not information, it was illumination. It did not explain, it was unveiled, and thus they became strange even to their brethren. Misunderstood, set aside, at times accused, at times adored, but always trembling. For to hear thunder in the soul is to be marked, to walk beneath the hush of something holy, and still it happens, even now. In the silence of some hidden soul a voice is rising, not to shout but to beckon, and the soul, if it be still, shall hear it, and the soul, if it be open, shall echo, and the soul, if it be broken, shall become thunder made flesh. So sleep, O listener, with thy heart open, for who knoweth what whispers may stir behind thy veil tonight? There are places where light cannot reach, and yet the soul is lit aflame. There are moments when the eye seeth nothing, yet the heart beholdeth all. Hast thou ever stepped into darkness so thick it seemed to breathe, and found there a voice waiting, not to harm but to reveal? In the beginning there was a mountain wrapped in smoke, a summit veiled by the hand of the Almighty. Sinai, the trembling stone where Moses stood barefoot and the people afar did quake. A cloud descended, not soft and white as spring air, but black with holiness, heavy with glory. The thunder rolled like the sound of 10,000 wings. The lightning etched the sky with fear. Yet from within that shroud came a whisper, the law not spoken to crowds, but etched by the finger of the divine upon tablets of stone. What is it about the cloud that calleth the soul? What secret doth the cave keep, that the heavens must stoop low to speak there? Elijah knew the cloud. After fire fell from heaven and prophets were silenced by sword, he fled into silence. Beneath the juniper tree he begged for death, and was answered not with wrath but with bread baked on coals and the soft tread of angel feet. He wandered then to Horeb, the mount of God, and there he hid in a cave, swallowed by stone and silence. The winds tore past, the earth did groan, fire flashed across the cliffs, but in none of these came the voice. Then a stillness, a still small sound, not loud, not fierce, but sacred, and he wrapped his face, for he knew this silence was God, and thus it hath ever been. The voice of heaven seeketh not the pride of palaces, but the hush of hollows, not the throne, but the cleft in the rock. There was a cave near Damascus, where a blind man waited. Once he had breathed fury upon the followers of the way, dragging them bound into judgment. But on the road a light brighter than the sun did cast him to the earth, and a voice, terrible and tender, spoke his name as if it had known him from the womb. Saul, Saul. And when he rose he could see no more, save for the memory of a voice that burned behind his eyes. For 3 days he sat in darkness, and it was there, in that blindness, in that unknowing, in that cave of waiting, that scales fell and a new name was given, Paul. The voice had come again, not with thunder but through the veil of night. And the cloud, how often it returns, not just in form but in feeling, for the cloud is not always in the sky. Sometimes it is the cloud of doubt, the cloud of sorrow, the cloud of not knowing, which setteth upon the soul like mist upon the sea. It is the dark night of the spirit, of which the mystics speak, where prayers echo but no answer cometh, where hope seemeth swallowed by shadow. And yet it is there in the unlit places that the divine doth draw near. St. John of the Cross called it the dark night of the soul, not as punishment but as purifying fire. For when all comfort is stripped away, the soul turneth its face only unto the hidden one. And there in that cloud a whisper is born, one that does not answer but changes the one who asked. There was another cave, too, deep in Patmos, where the waves thundered against ancient rock, and the exile sat alone, the last of the apostles, old and veiled in solitude. And in that cave on the Lord's day he heard a voice behind him like a trumpet, and turned to behold the Son of Man. Hair white as wool, eyes like flame, voice as many waters. And from that cave came the apocalypse, the unveiling, the thunder, the seals, the stars that fall, and the one who cometh with clouds. O listener, do not fear the cloud, do not flee the cave. For in these places, though no eye seeth, the Spirit broodeth like a dove upon the deep. In the womb of shadow the word is formed. In the belly of the whale the prophet is turned. In the silence of the tomb the stone is rolled away. All through Scripture, all through time, the pattern remaineth: cloud, cave, then voice, darkness, waiting, then light. And the voice that cometh through is not always loud. It may come in dreams, in the breath between sobs, in the echo of a psalm sung alone. It may come in the hush after the storm, in the scent of oil on the altar, in the rustle of unseen wings. It cometh when thou art still, when thou art emptied, when thou art no longer trying to be heard but are ready at last to listen. And the voice shall not explain, but it shall fill, not inform but transform. And though thou walkest in a cloud, thou art not forsaken. Behind the veil a voice still speaketh, and that voice hath known thy name from the beginning. There are nights when the soul drifteth far beyond stars and time, and the body sleepeth, yet the spirit wandereth. In such hours, what voices roam the chambers of the sleeping mind? And who is it that speaketh from beyond the veil of slumber, when the eyes are shut, but the heavens are watching still? Lo, from the earliest scrolls and whispered scriptures it hath been written, dreams are not but shadows of thought. They are, at times, the thunder of the unseen, wrapped in softness, clothed in mystery, delivered in the cradle of sleep. For when man is hushed, when striving ceaseth and the tongue is stilled, the veil grows thin, and the one who formed the stars speaketh as in Eden, gently from behind the leaves. In the days of old the patriarchs heard while they slept. Jacob, the wanderer, with a stone for his pillow and stars for his canopy, dreamed of a ladder that reached to heaven. Angels did ascend and descend upon it, and the Lord himself stood above, vowing blessings that would outlive the dust of the earth. And when Jacob awoke, he trembled and whispered, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not." For even in sleep God had drawn near. And again, Joseph the dreamer, son of sorrow and favor, he whose vision stirred envy and chains. He dreamed of stars that bowed, of sheaves that worshipped, of thrones unseen. Not for vanity did he dream, but because heaven had opened a secret path. And in time when famine came and kingdoms cried, it was the dreamer who held the key. For he had heard thunder in the silence and remembered, and still the prophets knew. Daniel, servant of kings and interpreter of fire, beheld in visions of night the rise and fall of beasts, the coming of the Ancient of Days, and the thrones that flame. Though the lion's breath was upon him, and empires raged, he closed his eyes and saw beyond Babylon. And he wrote the dreams with ink and prayer, and sealed them with trembling hands. But do you think the days of such dreams have ended? Nay. For the Spirit of the Lord doth not slumber, and though many hearts have waxed cold, and the world doth murmur with noise and pride, yet the Most High still whispereth in the deep places of night. Hast thou never awakened in the hush before dawn, thy breath quickened, thy soul stirred, with words upon thy tongue thou didst not speak? Hast thou never dreamed of waters that called thy name, or voices that came not from men but from silence itself? These are not accidents. These are not madness. These are the echoes of Eden that still find their way into thy sleep. For he hath said, "In the last days I shall pour out my Spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams. Your young men shall see visions." Not only the priest, not only the prophet, but even the servant girl and the shepherd boy, even the outcast and the nameless wanderer, all shall see, all shall dream, and in those dreams shall thunder speak, but not the thunder of storms and wrath. Nay, a deeper thunder, a voice that shaketh not the skies but the heart, a voice that calleth the sleeper by their true name, the one etched before birth, the one no man knoweth but God alone. Yet many do not listen, for the world is loud, and dreams are dismissed like chaff blown on the morning wind. But the wise, the wise lay still when they awake. They do not rush. They ponder, they pray, they ask, "What hast thou spoken in the night, O Lord of the veil?" Some dreams stir terror, others bring peace. Some come with symbols none can read, but the soul doth feel their weight. And in some there is fire. in others a garden. Sometimes a voice crieth, Come, and the dreamer awaketh weeping, not knowing why. It is because the thunder has passed over, and the soul hath remembered something ancient, something before the womb, something holy. There was a woman once in a quiet land who dreamed of a scroll that opened itself in fire, and upon it were names she could not pronounce. But in her sleep she wept and wept, for she knew, though she had never read such words, they were written for her. And when she awoke, her life was never the same. There was a man who dreamed he stood in a temple not made with hands, and the incense swirled like galaxies above his head. And a voice cried, You are not alone, though he had told no one of his sorrow. And when he rose, he no longer feared the night. Such dreams are not rare, only forgot, only buried, only unwelcomed by a world that trusteth only in what the eye can see. But thou, if thou wouldst listen, wait before the noise, wait before the day, for the Spirit speaketh in dreams still, to warn, to comfort, to awaken. For some scrolls are not written on paper, but upon the heart in the hours when man is most still. And some visions are not to be shared, but to be kept, pondered in silence, like Mary who held the angel's words and told no one. And when you sleepest tonight, ask not only for rest, ask for fire, ask for thunder, ask for him who speaketh without tongue, who cometh like mist upon the mountains, who loveth thee more than breath. And shouldst thou dream, do not forget, write it upon thy soul, for perhaps the veil was lifted for a moment, and the whisper thou heard was not a dream at all. What if there cometh a day when the veil is rented not gently, but utterly torn? When the hush of ages breaketh like a vessel dropped from heaven's altar? What if on that final morning the skies do not awaken with birdsong, but with thunder? A thunder not born of rain, nor tempest, nor cloud, but of revelation. A thunder that hath waited since the foundation of the world. There is an hour not yet written in the time of men. An hour sealed beneath the stars, waiting as a scroll waits to be opened, brittle with waiting, heavy with truth. And lo, when that hour cometh, it shall not come softly. The stars shall hold their breath. The moon shall bleed a crimson ache. The sun shall bow his head, and hiddeth not behind the mountain, but behind judgment. And in that dread silence, like a stillness before the blade, shall one arise. He shall descend not as the messengers of old, who whispered in fig trees or walked beside the well. Nay, this angel cometh with fire behind his eyes, and a voice no soul hath yet heard and remained unchanged. Clothed in the cloud of God's fury, wrapped in the radiance of the throne, his face burneth like the furnace in which Daniel walked, and his feet, yea, they shine as molten bronze upon the altar. And in his hand tremble now a scroll, but not sealed, not this time, for it is written, He shall set one foot upon the sea and the other upon the earth, and he shall lift his hand to the heavens, and swear by him who liveth forever and ever, that time shall be no longer. The delay is done. The waiting is fulfilled. The last trumpet is at hand. He shall cry not as men cry, but as a lion roareth in the night of its hunger. And when he crieth, 7 thunders shall answer him. 7 voices of judgment, mystery, and awe. 7 thunders that have waited behind silence, behind the hush of prophets, behind the trembling lips of John, who heard, but was told to write not. Seal it, he was told. Not yet, not yet. But now, at the end of all ends, now the seals are broken. The scroll is opened. The things hidden from kings and scribes, from mystics and mourners, from the poor who wondered and the wise who wept, shall be spoken. For this is the hour when the thunder shall no longer be still. And what shall they say? None knoweth fully, save the one upon the throne, but the soul shuddereth at the thought. For thunder is the voice of majesty, the breath of holiness, the word that endeth all other words. Perhaps they shall speak the names of the judges. Perhaps they shall recall the crimes of empires, the blood of children, the forgotten bones buried beneath walls of gold. Perhaps they shall call back the stars that watched Eden fall. Or perhaps they shall say thy name. For the scroll is not merely a record, it is a reckoning. And those whose names are not found within the Lamb's book, sealed with mercy, shall face the thunder alone. But for the righteous, O blessed mystery, for them the thunder is not terror, it is released. The chains of death shall melt like wax. The shadows shall retreat before the gaze of glory. The tears of the martyrs, gathered in bowls by angels, shall be poured like perfume upon the feet of the King. And those who slept in dust shall rise, not in dread, but in song. It is the hour for which creation groaned, the hour when the earth, tired of blood, shall breathe anew, the hour when swords shall be broken, not into plowshares, but into dust. For there shall be no more hunger, no more night, no more whispers of sorrow. The angels shall cry, and the thunder shall speak, and the heavens shall echo, "It is done." Yea, done. The sea shall give up her dead, and the graves shall open like scrolls, and justice shall walk as a man with sandals made of flame. And the Lamb shall not come wounded but crowned, not silent but singing. And the song shall be of judgment and mercy and love that endured even unto the end of the world. And thou, yes, thou who now heareth this sacred imagining, wilt thou be among the sleepers or the seekers? When the angel cometh, wilt thou know his voice? Or wilt thou tremble, having buried thine ears beneath the stones of this world? Let not thy heart be troubled. For even now, before that day dawneth, the Lord whispereth in lesser thunders, in dreams, in tears, in the rustling of leaves, in the trembling of the spirit when all else is still. Prepare, O soul, for the seventh angel is already near, and his hand draweth back the veil with each passing hour. And lo, after the cry of the angel, after the voice that shook the heavens and split the ages, there shall descend once more a silence, not the silence of peace, nor the silence of sleep, but a silence like the space between the drawing of a bow and the flight of the arrow, a silence that is holy, heavy, a silence that is the breath held by creation itself. For the seven thunders shall not speak all at once. Yea, their voices are vast, their meaning weighty, their tongues older than the stars that shine above thy roof. They wait not for man's readiness, but for the appointed hush, the moment when all noise is cleared, when the soul of the world is still enough to receive them. And so there cometh this silence, the final silence, a stillness that gathereth itself like a storm behind the mountains. No bird shall call, and the winds shall cease their play among the cedars. The sea shall lay down like a lion lulled by incense, and the cities of men shall fall quiet, not by command, nor by war, but by awe, as though every wall and tower, every gate and garden knoweth that something beyond time is near. And it shall come to pass that even the angels shall fold their wings, for they too know reverence, they too shall watch. And the scroll, once opened, shall pause in its unrolling, as if the very parchment feareth to breathe too fast. Yea, even the stars shall dim. And thou, O soul, thou who waiteth in the veil between now and then, shalt feel that hush. It shall creep upon thy bones in the watches of the night. Thou wilt not name it, but it will press upon thy heart as the hush before a mother's weeping, or the stillness before the earth opens to swallow the unjust. It is the silence before the final word. And what is that word? None know. Perhaps it is not a word, but a name not uttered since the foundation of the firmament, a name too holy to be carved upon stone or spoken by prophets, a name that unraveled time and called stars into being. Perhaps it is that name which shall fall upon the earth like a sword dipped in honey and fire, or perhaps the word is judgment, or mercy, or both, entwined like fire and smoke. But before it is spoken, all must wait, all must bow to the silence. And thus the Holy Ones shall gather not to speak, but to listen. The martyrs shall set down their crowns, the saints shall fold their hands. The watchers, those ancient sentinels buried in the depths, shall rise not in rebellion, but in reverence. For even their doom awaits the final word. And thou, what shalt thou do? Wilt thou tremble in thy sleep, feeling what thy mind doth not yet know? Wilt thou pause in thy walking, thy breathing, as though touched by an unseen wind? The silence shall find thee, no matter thy station. It shall not knock, it shall enter like a breath. And all shall remember the whisper from long ago, "Be still and know that I am God." For this is that stillness, not of comfort but of command, not of calm but of clarity. And in that silence every deed shall echo, every lie shall stand bare, every kindness shall rise like incense to the throne. And the world that hath so long filled its days with noise, wars, and laughter, songs, and weeping, shall remember that it is dust before the breath of the one who formed it. And so the silence shall reign, but not forever, for silence too hath its season. And when its fullness is complete, when all is aligned and the unseen wheels have turned behind the stars, then the thunder shall speak. But not yet, not until the silence is complete. The silence that speaketh louder than armies. The silence that filleth temples and tombs alike. The silence that falleth between the lightning and the word. And as thou least beneath the veil of this fin. Hush, remember this, the silence is not emptiness. It is preparation, the pause before revelation. The bowing of all things low before the word that shall end all other words. And when it cometh thou shalt know. For the silence shall not return, it is the last, and it hath waited since the beginning. And then, when the hush hath ripened into wait, when the stillness is deep as the well of Sheol, when the heavens have held their breath for the final time, the voice shall return. Not one, but seven. Not loud as men reckon thunder, but full, yea, full of weight, as if every word were shaped from the marrow of mountains. They shall not speak in haste, nor in wrath alone, though wrath may be among them. They shall not sound as men sound, nor angels, nor even the stars. For the seven thunders are not echoes of creation, they are the fire before it. And what shall they say? None know for certain. For their voices were sealed in the days of the prophet who fell upon his face and dared not write what he heard. He who wept upon the isle of vision. He who was told, seal up what the seven thunders uttered and write them not. Yea, he obeyed, but now the seals are loosened, the scroll is open, and time hath run out. And lo, the first thunder shall speak, and its voice shall be sorrow. A sorrow deeper than the wails of mothers or the mourning of prophets. It shall cry for the days when men were given truth and turned their faces away. It shall speak of Eden lost and covenants broken, and the rivers of mercy that men refused to drink from. It shall be the voice of divine lament, not of regret, but of mourning holy and just. And the second shall rise, and its word shall be fire. It shall speak justice not as men know it, but as heaven knoweth it, unflinching, slow-burning, exact. It shall weigh nations upon scales not forged by hands, and cities shall be remembered for what they truly were, not their glory but their hunger, not their walls but their wounds, and the mountains shall bow to hear it. Then cometh the third, and its voice shall be water, not gentle rain, but the flood that remembereth, the flood that doth not forget the cries of the enslaved, nor the blood hidden in fields, nor the bones beneath marble. It shall be the memory of the earth herself, bearing witness at last. Every ocean shall stir, and the rivers shall murmur old names long buried beneath the empire. The fourth thunder shall follow, and its utterance shall be light, but not the light of day. Nay, it is the light behind all seeing. A revealing, a cleansing, a great uncovering. It shall tear veils from the eyes of kings and kindle vision in the meek. What was hidden shall be seen. What was painted in shadow shall be set in flame. And none shall say, I knew not, for all shall be known. The fifth, the fifth, its sound shall be unlike the rest, for it is a song, a melody long forbidden, yet written before the foundation of the firmament, a harmony of angels and dust, of garden and wilderness, of promise and return. It shall be sung by those who were crushed, by those the world forgot, and it shall echo in the bones of all who wait for redemption. Even the graves shall tremble at its tune. Then shall speak the sixth, and the sky itself shall lean to hear it. Its voice shall be the reckoning of time, the final tally. It shall speak not to ears, but to years. It shall bend the centuries backward and forward and lay bare the true shape of history. No dynasty shall escape its measure. No priest, no merchant, no builder of towers, it shall declare, this was the hour, this was the price. And last of all, the seventh, the hidden voice, the one no prophet dared record, it shall not be like the others, for when it speaketh, it shall not shake the earth, it shall still it. It shall not rend the heavens, it shall mend them. Its word shall not be thunder, though all call it so. It shall be glory, glory unlike anything spoken by men or angels, a glory not of vengeance, but of return. not of punishment but of presence. And all flesh shall fall still, for they shall know the voice that made them. They shall remember it as a child remembereth the lullaby sung before language, as the dust remembereth the breath that entered it. And the trumpet shall not sound, for it shall not be needed. The seventh voice shall fill all things, and what began in secret shall end in light. And thou, O listener, thou who waiteth beneath thy thin blanket of time, thou shalt hear it. Whether in waking or in dream, whether in joy or in dread, it shall find thee, for the hidden voice was never lost. It was only waiting, waiting for the silence, waiting for the seals, waiting for thee. And when it speaks, may thy soul be ready. For this is not the voice of ending, this is the voice of unveiling. This is the voice that was held in the hollow of the throne behind the veil beyond the flame. This is the voice that speaketh once and never again. Selah. Hast thou ever wondered what is before the throne of the Almighty? Not the fires of wrath, nor the flames of judgment, but a brightness more ancient than the sun, and gentler than the light of dawn. There in the court above all courts, in the realm where no moth may enter nor time decay, stand 7 lamps, eternal, unwavering, holy. They are not of oil nor of wax, neither fed by hand nor quenched by wind. For these lamps burn with the breath of God, and their flame is the Spirit that hovered over the deep when the world was still formless and void. Before the throne, set in crystal sea and encircled by rainbow and seraph, there doth stand 7 golden flames, and these are not as men know fire. They do not consume, they reveal, they do not destroy, they discern. For these are the 7 spirits of God, shining as one light, yet distinct, as stars are many yet born of one sky. And each hath its own hue, its own voice, its own weight upon the soul. The first is the spirit of wisdom, and its flame is still as a mountain lake at dawn. It setteth upon the brow of prophets, and upon the shoulders of those who do not speak in haste. It seeth the end from the beginning, and its glow bringeth peace to the anxious heart. It lighteth the way not of conquest, but of counsel. The second is the spirit of understanding. It burneth low, like coals beneath bread. Its warmth enters the heart and makes a dwelling there. It unravelleth parables, and openeth the meaning of things hidden. It is the whisper behind dreams, the silent tutor of the meek. The third is the spirit of counsel. It danceth like firelight in the tent of the wandering shepherd. It speaketh to those who must choose, and it bendeth not toward ease, but toward righteousness. Its flame is found in the eyes of those who lead with tears. It does not shout, but it cannot be ignored. The fourth is the spirit of might. And it does not blaze with noise or fury, but with resolve. It is the fire beneath the bones of those who endure. It hath strengthened the arms of the nameless. It hath lifted the necks of the bowed. It is the flame that hath never gone out, though kingdoms rose and fell. The fifth is the spirit of knowledge, a lamp like the light of morning on scrolls unopened. It burneth through illusion, and revealeth the root of all things. It doth not puff up, nor seek praise, but longeth to be poured out. It knoweth the stars by name, and the thoughts of men when they lie upon their beds. The sixth is the spirit of reverence, a pale blue flame, cool as water and bright as mercy. It trembleth not from fear, but from love. It bows before the throne not in terror, but in awe. It lighteth the hearts of those who fall upon their knees and say, Holy, holy, holy. It is the breath that silenceth pride. And the seventh, the spirit of the fear of the Lord, not the fear of slaves, but the fear of sons. It is the flame that keeps men from lifting their hands toward sin. It searcheth the soul and setteth boundaries where none can cross. It is holy dread, sacred trembling, the hush that falleth when God speaketh. And behold, all 7 are one. They burn in unity and without envy. No flame dimmeth the other. No lamp casteth shadow upon its kin. For these are the fullness of the Spirit that proceedeth from him who sitteth upon the throne, and from the Lamb who standeth as slain. They burn not only before the throne, they burn within those who are called. Yea, within thee, if thou dost make room, hast thou not felt it? The small, flickering wisdom that rebukes thy haste, the counsel that entereth when thou art still, the strength that carrieth thee when thy hands hang down. These are the lamps that do not consume but awaken. And lo, around these flames are gathered 4 living creatures, full of eyes, full of wings, full of remembrance. And they cry not for themselves, but for him. They echo the light, they reflect the flame, and they do not sleep. Holy, 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 they cry day and night without ceasing. And their song is the breath of the lamps. Above the lamps the throne, upon the throne the Ancient of Days. And beside the throne the scroll is sealed with 7 seals, its secrets yet unbroken, though time leaneth toward its last breath. And yet it is these 7 lamps, these 7 spirits, that prepare the way for what is to come. For without their light no scroll can be read. Without their fire no heart can bear what shall be revealed. And thus the flame continueth, quiet, faithful, unseen by kings, yet beheld by saints. It burneth in the shepherd's field, in the prison cell, in the widow's jar of oil. It shineth where no torch is raised, and where it is welcomed darkness taketh flight. And the soul remembereth. Not all fire devours, some fire sanctifieth, some fire reveals, some fire leadeth home. And the 7-fold flame doth not fade. Selah. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me. And being turned, lo, I beheld 7 golden candlesticks, and in the midst of them one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. But what was in his hand? In his right hand he held the stars, 7 of them, and the stars were not of silver nor of flame. They were not cold stones flung through the vault of heaven. Nay, these were the stars that walked, the stars that listen, the stars that write. And it was said unto the prophet in vision, The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches. And thus we ponder in hushed wonder, what angels are these that dwell not above only, but among the lamps? Each star a shepherd of light, each flame a gathering of souls, each church a lampstand, and he walketh among them, not afar off but near, not aloof but dwelling, whispering, warning, strengthening. For the stars are not set in distant sky, they are held close within his hand. And if a star falleth, he knoweth. If a lamp doth flicker, he restoreth. 7 stars and 7 churches. To Ephesus the star was told, Thou hast labored and thou hatest evil, but thou hast forgotten thy first love. And he who walked among them wept, not with wrath, but with yearning. Return unto me, he saith, or I shall remove thy lamp from its place. And lo, the star trembled. To Smyrna the word was different, Be faithful unto death. Yea, I know thy poverty, yet thou art rich. And though tribulation presses thee as a winepress, fear not. For the star of Smyrna shall be crowned with life, and the lamp shall not go out in the darkness of martyrdom. To Pergamos the star stood near the throne of Satan, where doctrine warred with truth. And the voice came like a sword, Repent, or I shall come quickly. For the word is not only comfort, but judgment also. Yet even there the hidden manna remained, and a white stone waited with a name known only to the one who overcometh. To Thyatira the star bore witness to love and faith and service, but also to corruption in secret. Jezebel whispered beneath incense, and her seductions fed the flock forbidden fruit. Yet to the faithful within her midst the morning star was promised, and the authority to rule as he ruleth. To Sardis the star held a name of life, but was near unto death. The garments were stained, and the watchers had slept. Awake, cried the Spirit, strengthen what remains. For though few walked in white, the scroll was not yet closed, and the flame not yet smothered. To Philadelphia he gave an open door that no man could shut. The star bore little strength, yet had not denied his name. And to that lamp he spoke, Hold fast what thou hast, that no man take thy crown. And he who overcometh shall be made a pillar in the temple of my God, and shall go out no more. And to Laodicea, O Laodicea, lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, rich in gold but poor in spirit, seeing yet blind, and the voice, though stern, still knocked at the door. Behold, I stand without, it said, and knock. And even to the last, if any man hears and open, the Lord shall enter and sup with him, and he with the Lord. 7 stars and 7 voices, 7 rebukes, and 7 promises. And in all of them he walketh amidst the lamps. He doth not sit aloof upon high heaven while the flames flicker upon earth. Nay, he walketh, he draweth near. His feet touch the gold, his hand cradleth the stars. His eyes see every tear shed in the pew, every weary breath of the faithful, every unspoken confession by the oil lamp's glow. And the stars, oh, the stars, they are not the great and lofty, but the unseen guardians. The ones who pray through the night for the people entrusted to their care. The ones who write the names of the saints not in books of earth, but in scrolls that burn with holy ink. They are angels, yes, but are they not also the messengers, the shepherds, the unseen elders? Those who stand between heaven and the flock, who weep when the lampstand wavers and rejoice when repentance is lit anew. And what shall it mean that they are held in his right hand, not loosely, not carelessly, but with strength, with covenant, with everlasting promise? Though the nations rage and the winds of doctrine blow and the hearts of many grow cold, he holdeth his stars, and he did not let go. And should a church fall and a lamp be removed, he grieves not as a man, but as a creator whose breath once lit that very flame. And still he calleth, still he warns, still he loves it. For the lamps are not ornaments, they are not relics, they are living. And the stars are not cold fires. They are voices, and the one who walks among them is not gone. He is present, even now, even here. And thus let the heart that wandereth return. Let the soul that slumbers awake. Let the hand that trembleth rise again. For he hath not forgotten the lamps of old, nor the stars he laced within his grasp. They shine still, they still speak, they wait still. And he walketh among them even now as moonlight upon sacred stone. Selah. And there was silence no longer. For heaven, which once had whispered through the wind, now began to tremble with a voice not of man, nor of angel, but of the Most High, wrapped in mystery. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud. And a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. He held in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot upon the earth. And when he cried, his voice was as a lion that roareth. And when he had cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. But what did they say? John heard. He heard with soul and bone. The sound did not enter the ear alone, but carved itself into the very marrow of his being. And yet it was forbidden. Seal up those things which the 7 thunders uttered, and write them not. And thus we are left not with speech, but with silence veiled in lightning. 7 thunders, not 6, not 5, but 7. 7, as always, the number of divine completion, of fullness sealed in sanctity. In the beginning it was 7 days, 7 lights in the firmament, 7 pairs in the ark, 7 years of plenty, 7 of famine, 7 trumpets, 7 seals, and now 7 thunders, not mere noise, but a language older than stars, more solemn than the scrolls, more sacred than speech. A voice only heaven was allowed to keep. And if 7 spirits be the light that goes before the throne, and 7 stars be the messengers who walk among the lamps, then the 7 thunders are the final cadence, the hidden echo of the last divine word. When the Spirit speaks, men weep. When the stars are held forth, the churches are guided. But when the thunder speaks, even prophets are silenced. For this is the language of endings, the hush before judgment, the murmur behind the veil of time. And though John was beloved and borne up into heaven's own temple, even he was told to seal them up, to let the thunder roll back into the clouds, to let mankind wait for the day when that voice shall no longer be restrained. What then do you think was spoken? Was it wrath? Was it mercy? Was it the name of the last trumpet, or the day when the books shall be opened? Did the thunder echo the voice that once walked in the cool of the garden, or the cry that shall descend with the new Jerusalem? No man knoweth. Yet even in silence the thunders speak, for their number testifies. 7 again. And so we understand that the Spirit went forth in fullness, not in part. that the stars shine in perfect design, not as scattered fire. The thunders too, though withheld, complete the triad, spirit, star, and thunder, light, messenger, and voice. And we dwell now in the waiting, between the sixth and the seventh seal, between the final trumpet and the first light of the new day. Even now the angel stands upon the sea and land, one foot in the chaos of water, the other on the dust of man. And he cries with a voice that makes the heavens crack, and yet none may transcribe what follows. This too is holy. Not all things are for parchment. Some things are only for trembling. And yet this much we are given. When the seventh thunder shall finally break, when that sealed utterance is loosed, there shall be no more delay. Time shall fold. The mystery of God shall be finished, as he hath declared to his servants the prophets. And so the thunders are not merely a mystery withheld, they are a promise pending, a vow yet fulfilled. They wait with the patience of eternity, and in their silence lies all that is unresolved, the groaning of the earth, the cries of the martyrs, the sighs of angels, all folded into one scroll of thunder, hidden in a cloud, resting at the feet of a flame-footed messenger. And when at last it is opened, not by man's hand, but by heaven's decree, then the Spirit shall no longer be in whisper, but in roar. The stars shall not merely shine, but fall. The skies shall be split, and the voice shall ring from east to west. And those who feared the Lord shall lift their faces unto the lightning and say, Blessed be he who cometh in the name of the hidden thunder. And thus we dwell in the echo of what hath not yet been spoken. The churches still tremble beneath the seven stars. The throne still burns with the seven flames. And the thunders still wait. But lo, blessed is he who listens, even when no words are given. For some silences thunder louder than storms. Some mysteries are not given to confound, but to comfort, to assure that what is hidden is not lost, but reserved. And if thou hast heard the Spirit, and beheld the stars, and longed to hear the thunder, know this, thou art part of the story sealed in heaven's scroll. And one day, when all things are fulfilled, thou too shalt hear what John could not write. And it shall be not fear, but fullness, not judgment, but joy, not an ending, but an eternal beginning. For the seven thunders are not the closing of sound, they are the final amen to the song of creation, and they shall not be silent forever. Selah, do you not feel it, that hush behind the veil of heaven, a silence that is not empty but pregnant with waiting, not despairing but reverent, not forgotten but held. A silence shaped like a promise not yet spoken, like a scroll sealed with seven seals, resting in the hand of him who sits upon the throne. And thou, O thou listener under the stars, thou reader by oil's dim glow, art thou not part of this waiting too? For in the book of the end it is written not merely to the wise, nor only to the prophets, nor even to the martyrs whose robes were made white, but also and especially to he who waits. Blessed is he who waiteth. Not he who understands all mysteries, not he who unravels the riddles of the heavens, not even he who beholdeth visions by night, but he who waiteth. Waiteth though the stars fall and the sun turns to sackcloth. Waiteth though the scroll is sealed and the thunder is silent. Waiteth though the voice of the angel is heard by others and not by him. Waiteth, because the Lord is coming. There was once a time when the watchmen stood upon the walls of Jerusalem, long before her gates were broken, long before the exile, and they looked not for enemies but for dawn. They kept vigil not for war, but for the first golden edge of the sun. They would whisper one to another in the darkness, Watchman, what of the night? And the watchman would answer, The morning cometh, and also the night. So too is the heart of prophecy. So too is the benediction of those who do not flee from the night, but remain at their post until the light breaks the horizon of heaven. O blessed art thou, if thy faith holdeth fast, though thine eyes see not. If thou prayest, though the incense rises without reply. If thou waitest at the sealed gate, knowing not when it shall open, but believing that it shall. For this is the final beatitude. Not blessed is the one who beheld the heavens torn open. Not blessed is the one who walked with the angels or held the keys to Sheol. But blessed is he who believed, yet saw not. The old ones knew this. Daniel, when he was told to shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end, he bowed his head, not in understanding, but in holy patience. John, when the 7 thunders uttered their voices and he was forbidden to write, he did not cry out in protest, nor question the will of the Most High. He sealed what was sealed and continued writing what was given. For waiting is not idleness, it is faith in motion. To wait is to breathe in the rhythm of heaven. To wait is to acknowledge that thou art not the author of the scroll, nor the breaker of seals, but the reader, the hearer, the lover of the word. It was said by the prophet, "The vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry." And so it is with the end. There are those who chase signs and tremble at omens. They scratch at the parchment and seek to force open what has not yet been lost. But the blessed ones, they wait in reverence. They live as though the Lamb were returning at twilight. They sleep as though their souls were already in the palm of his hand. They eat and they weep, and they sing their quiet hymns, and they raise their children in the shadow of the coming kingdom. They do not know the day nor the hour, but they wait, and their waiting is their worship. For faith is not the seeing of what is shown. Faith is the trust in what is still sealed. The scroll rests in his hand still. The seals remain until the trumpet is called. The thunders sleep beneath the veil. And yet the heavens are not empty. The lampstands still burn. The stars are still held. The Spirit still speaks to him who hath ears. And so what then shall we do? We wait, but not as those who despair, not as those who doubt, not as those who grow cold and cease to light the lamp. We wait as the bride waiteth for the groom. We wait as the field waiteth for the rain. We wait as the earth waiteth for resurrection. And when the scroll is opened, when the final seal is broken, when the voice that shook Sinai speaks again, we shall not be strangers to that voice. We shall know him, for we have waited with him. We shall rise, for we have kept watch with the stars. We shall rejoice, for we have endured the silence with song in our hearts. Blessed is he who waiteth, even when the heavens are shut, even when the scroll is closed, even when the thunder withholds its secret. For he who waiteth hath already heard enough to trust, to bow, to believe. And in this quiet faith lies the beginning of all glory. Hast thou ever wondered, child of dust and starlight, what becomes of the words heaven no longer speaks aloud? For not all books are bound in parchment, in tea and sealed with wax. Some are written in wind, some etched in tears, and some, yea, some are written in fire. There is a scroll that no man can touch, a book held not by angel nor prophet, but by the one who sees the marrow of men, who counts the sighs between their waking and their weeping. This is the book of life. It is not like the scroll of the kings of the earth, nor like the ledgers of scribes who forget the poor. It is written by a hand that trembleth not, and its ink is not made of earthly dye. Nay, it is written in light. Each name inscribed is not merely remembered, it is known. Each breath recorded as though it were incense. Each sorrow cradled in the margin like a sacred psalm. The Lamb himself guards this book, and none may blot out what he hath chosen to remain. But lo, there are other books, books that burn, not because they are evil in themselves, but because they were never meant to last. Words that boasted of thrones built in pride. Scrolls that sang only of power and cared not for truth. Books of kings who struck the earth with iron scepters, whose laws flowed like blood in the streets, whose courts knew no justice for the widow nor mercy for the orphan. These books too are written, not by the righteous, not by the humble, but by hands that trembled with greed, by fingers that dipped pens into the pain of the meek and called it glory. But the fire cometh. And when the Lord openeth his treasury of books, when the heavens roll back like a scroll, the books that burn shall be given to flame. It is written in the vision of the prophet Daniel that the Ancient of Days did sit, and the books were opened, not one but many. And the judgment did begin not with thunder, but with the gentle turning of pages. How terrible a thing it is to be written in a book that shall not endure. For kingdoms rise and boast of their immortality, yet their chronicles are but ash upon the wind. The scribes of Babel, the recorders of Tyre, the heralds of Rome, all their ink hath turned to dust. Only one book endureth forever. And it is not the book that sings of conquest, nor the scroll that exalts men as gods. It is the book of the Lamb, and in it are written the names of those who chose the narrow path. Not perfect names, not proud names, but names that clung to mercy when strength failed. Names that loved righteousness in secret when no eye but heaven watched. And yet there is a mystery, for some books burn not by wrath but by grace. There are words thou hast spoken, which heaven in its gentleness hath chosen to forget. There are chapters in thy life that the Lord in his mercy hath cast into the fire so that thou mayest begin anew. What he hath erased, let no man rewrite. For the fire that burneth is also the fire that purifieth. And the soul who once wrote of bitterness may, in time, become a psalm. The thief whose scroll was soaked in blood may hear his name spoken in paradise. The harlot whose pages were stained with shame may be clothed in linen whiter than snow. For it is not how thy book beginneth, but to whom it is surrendered at the end. The altar is the place where books are rewritten, and he who dwelleth between the cherubim doth blot out with tears what no man can cleanse with effort. Yea, even now the scroll of thy life is being read, not aloud, not before crowds or kings, but before the flame of God's presence, where every line is weighed by love. And lo, there is music between the lines. There is silence in the margins where thou hast groaned. There are phrases he hath underlined in gold, moments of kindness, of turning back, of weeping in secret when none but heaven saw. Wouldst thou not surrender thy pages to such a king? Wouldst thou not let him burn what is broken and rewrite what was lost? There is a river in heaven that floweth beneath the throne, and into its waters are cast the ashes of all forgiven books, not to be forgotten, but to be transfigured. And one day, in that final dawn when all thrones are cast down, and the earth melteth with fervent heat, thou shalt see thy name written anew, no longer in ink but in light. And the book shall be closed, not in sorrow, but in peace, and the fire shall rest. For all that was false is gone, and all that was true remaineth. What if the holiest words were the ones never spoken? What if the greatest thunder was the one that made no sound, but trembled quietly through the bones of the earth, and left its echo buried in the hearts of the listening? What if the mystery thou seekest was not hidden to torment thee, but withheld, gently, lovingly, so that the soul might learn silence again? 7 thunders there were, 7 voices that spoke from heaven when the scroll was opened, and the angel stood with 1 foot upon the sea and 1 upon the land. And John, the beloved, heard them speak. And he lifted his hand to write, but a voice from the highest place cried out, Seal it, write it down. Let this remain between God and his breath. What holy sound was this? What thunder dares to remain unwritten, unspoken, unseen? And yet it speaks, in the hush between storms, in the stillness before dawn, in the long pause before judgment falls or mercy descends. It speaks not in tongues of men, but in the quiet ache of the soul who waits, who surrenders the need to know and chooses instead to trust. There are scrolls meant for angels. There are scrolls meant for men. And then there are scrolls that belong to God alone. 7 thunders, 7 silences. A psalm never sung, yet always heard. Could it be, beloved, that the fullness of divine speech requires also the fullness of divine restraint? That the voice which formed galaxies with a whisper can also choose to rest in holy silence, not because he hath nothing to say, but because the time has not come for me to say it. Yea, what he keepeth sealed is not forgotten. It is sacred. And the soul that rests beneath such mystery is not cast aside, but is being taught the deeper tongue, the language of awe, the grammar of faith. Hast thou not seen how the stars keep their course without ever uttering a sound? How the oceans obey their bounds though they have never read a single line? There is a speech without syllables. There is a scroll written upon the waters, and another upon the bones of mountains. The birds of the air do not read, but they know when to return to the branches of home. The lilies of the field do not speak, yet they mirror the garments of the righteous. Creation itself is a gospel spoken not in words but in wonder. And the seven thunders, those thunders that John was forbidden to write, are the holy punctuation at the end of heaven's sentence. They are not lost, they are waiting, waiting to be spoken in the new tongue of the world to come. And until that day, we sit before the sealed scroll, like children before a fire they dare not touch, but whose warmth they feel even from afar. Not every word was given to be read. Not every vision was given to be shared. For there are secrets that are not secrets of shame, but of glory too heavy for the present hour. And the Spirit whispers still, "Blessed is he who waits, blessed is she who listens. For though the seven thunders were sealed, they have not ceased. Their echo is in the trembling of the olive trees. Their rhythm is in the breath of the hidden saints. Their silence is the shadow beneath the mercy seat. And lo, hath not thy soul heard them? When the wind stopped suddenly, and all the earth seemed to pause, when a child's cry pierced the night, and thou knewest something eternal had passed through. When the stars aligned not for signs, but for stillness. These are the footsteps of the thunder, the sacred hush of heaven reminding thee that some truths are too bright for parchment, too wide for language. And still, they speak. They speak through the dreams that come unbidden, the tears that fall without reason, the moments when the heart burns though no voice is heard. For the scroll that God keeps sealed is not absent. It is present in every unspoken longing, in every holy fear, in every ache that kneels without knowing why. O listener beneath the heavens, thou art not forgotten. Though the thunders speak no word to thy ear, they speak to thy spirit. And the Spirit himself interpreteth groanings too deep for words. Let this be thy comfort, that what was never written may yet be fulfilled, that what was never spoken may yet become a song, and that what was sealed in heaven was not sealed to hide, but to preserve until the day when all mysteries shall be made plain. Until then, let thy silence be a sanctuary. Let thy unknowing be thy offering. Let thy waiting be thy psalm. For in the end, when the final seal is broken and the Lamb stands upon the mountain, the thunder shall rise, not in wrath, but in benediction, and their silence shall break into the music of forever. What truths remain sealed beneath the wings of the cherubim, beneath the gold-leafed edges of unwritten scrolls, beneath the hush that even angels dare not break? What voices tremble still within the seven thunders, not in fury but waiting? They are not gone. They are not forgotten. They are held, like breath before the morning cry, like incense rising before the throne, like a name whispered in the darkness that only heaven remembers. For not all knowledge is given to know. Not all visions are meant to be seen. And not all prophecy is clothed in speech. Some things sleep, and in that sleep they speak. To the soul that listens between words, to the heart that beats in rhythm with the hidden stars, to the watcher who weeps not for answers but for awe. Yea, blessed is he who waits beneath the silence. Blessed is she who leans into the mystery. Blessed are they who dream with reverence and do not demand the seal be broken before its time. The scroll turns once more in heaven. The page is unseen, yet perfect. The ink is invisible, yet eternal. And thou, beloved listener, thou art written therein. Letters not made with hands, but with mercy, with tears, with light. So let the thunder rest. Let the stars burn in silence. Let the unanswered remain beautiful. Sleep now beneath the breath of God. Sleep as the watchers kneel again. Sleep as the wind carries thy name through the veil. For the book is not closed. It merely turns toward a page yet unspoken, toward a dawn not yet born. And when the thunder speaks again, may thy soul be still enough to hear it. Amen.